Live is a chance to interact with the artists and individuals that create our exhibits.
Meow Wolf Live is a window into our world, where we stream the processes, parts, and people we're made of every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Meet Meow Wolf is an interview-based show that focuses on our many Meow Wolfers and what they do, one at a time.
Wolf Watching is a peek behind the curtain at the work and individuals that make up our exhibitions.
Couch Out is a celebration of indie video games and the joy they generate.
So tune in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as Meow Wolf Live streams itself to a monitor near you.
Que sufro por su amor. No le diga que acá entre 1000 botellas suplico su perdón. Yo prefiero vivir ilusionado con ustedes y estas copas de licor.
A werewolf and a Frankenstein walk into a Dracula bar.
I'm funny, Mummy!
But seriously, folks, you're all cursed. Good night.
DIY culture kind of saved my life.
I feel like that invigorates the city.
It gives artists a chance to contribute to the community.
It is so important that we have artists and ideas and these think tanks where our community can really come together.
DIY spaces don't have a consistent revenue stream, and they usually don't have the bandwidth to get up to these codes.
In 2016, there was a fire at a DIY art space called Ghost Ship.
I remember seeing other venues starting to get shut down, so we did like a little town hall style meeting.
This is your community. Keep it going.
Instead of telling us, you can't do this, it's not safe, help us make this safe.
Our goal is to give over $250,000 to DIY art spaces across the country, but we need your help to get there.
Meow Wolf is putting up the first $100,000 to help reach our $250,000 goal. Join our movement today by contributing at meowwolf.com/DIY.
What year were you born?
1988.
This hamster mean a lot to you. Given to you by your mama?
Yes, and it was given to my mother by her mother.
Let me see what the shells have to say.
Miss Mina?
The wires.
Wires? What?
Tap the wires.
What?
Tap the wires. The water won't stop rising until you tap the wires.
The art world needs to get shaken up a little bit.
It's time for us to just be an agitator.
We don't know what we're doing, and we don't care.
We didn't want rules.
Not only is this crazy, but it's possible.
This is the new art.
It's incredible. Meow Wolf have done something truly unique.
Hello, world! Welcome to Meow Wolf Live. I'm your host, Dose One. I'm here with Emily Montoya.
Hello.
Ha! And we are doing a very special episode of Wolf Watching Meets Meet Meow Wolf. It's all about Kaleidoscape, which is a dark ride.
It is. Yes.
Your first ever?
First ever dark ride, yes.
And Meow Wolf's.
Super excited. Meow Wolf's first ever ride.
So no light ride. You haven't done a light ride?
Not yet.
Or a dark ride. Okay. All right, great. I love it. And what's special about today is we're going to go through all of the layers of human beings and artists that contribute to what you interact with, which is sort of a done Meow Wolf exhibit. So we are going to include the concept artists, the graphic design artists, the designers, that means architecture for the kids at home, and basically show how all the layers influence one another, intermingle, deal with creative direction, and then eventually just become hot glue in people's hands as they make a thing. So, yes. Emily, what do you do at Meow Wolf?
I am one of the co-founders of Meow Wolf, and I do creative direction mostly. So for this ride, I was a creative director alongside Matt King.
Awesome. Yeah. And then two, because you're here because you are this node between all these layers. So in your creative direction, you deal very closely with graphic design, because you do brand, which is Brant spelled wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and you'll see Brant later. He's coming up. He's our head of concept art. So you also work with concept art closely. And then how much do you work with the design and architecture team, just per case?
Yeah, creative direction really works with all teams. It's kind of like thinking of, you know, the different elements of our company being like a giant brain, and like creative direction is kind of like the corpus callosum that like sits in the middle of the brain and sort of like communicates with all the different departments and kind of like finds a way to synthesize it all into a whole that brings across the vision.
Right, and so you think about where you're not equipped to fully flesh something out. So it's either you can't do it physically, but you can think of it entirely, and you parse out the work to everyone and all that stuff.
Right, yeah, and it's really just kind of like holding that vision and sort of like also holding the constraints that are present in achieving that vision, because there's a lot of them.
Yes, which we'll get into today. Physical, the physical, and that's where the term too sick. We have a term here called too sick. Too sick means you would love to do it, like if you have a carrot and it glows, we can do that. But if you want the carrot to fly around the room and read your mind, that's too sick.
Too sick.
We can't make it fly. We can make it read your mind. So, in concepting, how did you think about Kaleidoscape? Like, how did this, where's zero for a dark ride?
Right, yeah, I mean, well, we really started at zero because we knew, okay, we have this ride, we have this building, we have this track that moves through the ride.
Right.
We know there's elements we can't change out. Like, we know we're going to have a car, we're going to have a gun, like a laser gun
and
in the ride.
And that's to turn things on. What is that tech called?
Yeah. Well, I don't know what it's technically called.
Okay.
So what we're calling it is the Conglomatron.
Love it.
And
that's what we're calling it then.
So that came from the old ride.
It was called the Conglomatron.
Yeah, so the old ride was Ghost Blasters 2.
Copyright friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you were kind of you're in this car, you're going through, it's kind of like a haunted house themed ride where you would get this laser gun and like point it at ghosts and shoot them and they would die again, basically. So
just like real life, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
So like in thinking of that, we're saying like, okay, well, we know we have this device, but how do we sort of like reframe it so that instead of it being like an instrument of destruction, it's an instrument of creation? So our idea is that it's an enabler, right? Yeah. So our idea is that you as the writer are using this device called the Conglomatron to nurture the landscape and make it grow and evolve. And so kind of like coming from there, that was a really strong start to
That's
the
really
concept.
great. Yeah.
And just in just sort of like, okay, well, you know, we know for Meow Wolf, like what we usually do is so different, right? Like we have many rooms that you can go through.
And this is built to have that. You're on a track. You're gonna get an environment that unfolds and is unpredictable to you, the passenger.
Right, but it's like here, it's sequential. You know, you're definitely going to go 1, 2, 3, all the way through to 7.
And that's a treat for you, because usually you have to create this maze with no rules and no entrance or exit. But this has a linear path that you can create a concept along.
Right, and so it kind of like, in a way, you're like, wow, well, it does take away the element of choice in the way that you would typically have it in a Meow Wolf installation.
Right, you're locked in a buggy.
But so how do we like respond to that? How do we like not only like make it so there's enough variety and like visual density and like excitement that you're going to feel like you're experiencing like all that Meow Wolf has to offer within like
on a track
under 3 minutes. Like how do we do that? How do we pack it with enough like things to look at and like experiences that you're going to still feel like this is a Meow Wolf experience?
And then we're going to get into today, what we're going to do is go through every zone that is in the dark ride one at a time and learn about each individual zone. But there is an overarching narrative which you are sent from QDOT to with your conglomeratron to reanimate this environment as you go through it.
Right,
when you thought of it, did you actually think of chunks, or did you sit down and be like, it's this QDOT adventure and it unfolds, and then fill in the actual sections, or did you know you were going to do all these sections up front?
Well, it definitely came from just like, okay, we know we want to have a little teaser for the upcoming Denver exhibition. And so that's where QDOT comes in. So QDOT is the Quantum Department of Transportation. They are basically, they run a subway system that goes all throughout the multiverse.
Right.
So the idea is that QDOT has built this ride in order to be a simulation to teach you about the process that makes quantum travel possible. And it involves donuts and sprinkles and wormholes and a cosmic egg.
That's right.
So that's kind of, you know, the basics,
that's
right?
exactly
like,
what it should be. And then you will, when we open our large exhibit in Denver, you may or may not be seeing more from QDOT.
Yeah,
just keep it right there. Yeah. And so that's the nice thing about this show too, is we get to step on the NDA and travel back through time and show you all the things that have been secret to us as we develop this, and now we can show all the layers and all the people that were a part of it. So, shall we get into it?
Yeah.
All right, we got some friends we want to bring on. Brant, Britt, come on out. All right, world, meet some of our friends. This is Brant, and this is Brittany.
Hey, how's it going?
So welcome to the green screen universe.
Thanks.
How's today?
Today is good. Today is good. We're talking about Dark Ride. Dark Ride opened. It's a pretty awesome time.
I love it. It's the Ides of April. It's not the Ides of March.
True.
It is.
Yeah.
That
is
true.
What does Ides mean? Does anyone know what the Ides mean?
It's the Eyes of April.
The Ides.
Something to do with
It's a
taxes,
Caesar thing.
Right?
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah,
so
it is
wait,
tax day.
Shakespeare was in on taxes? Because he's the one that... Anyway, long story short. So, Chris, will you bring up our first image, if you don't mind? So what we're going to do is start with your hard work and understanding of Dark Ride. So, Britt, this is amazing to me that you have done more than one Dark Ride in your human life.
That's correct.
Okay, how many?
Well, so my old job, I worked in master planning. So I would take a park or an exhibit or a family entertainment center, which is what I focused on a lot. And I would take dark rides or whatever ride we wanted to put in there and figure out how that fit into the overall exhibit. So a lot of times that was working with ride manufacturers, off-the-shelf rides that already exist that we chose to put into our exhibits.
And they have specs.
Exactly,
okay.
And they have, turning radiuses, they have a certain size, they have cues, and so
and code regulations.
Exactly.
Oh.
So I would fit those into the overall land that I was planning and figure out the guest flow through that, where you enter, where you exit. And so this was really fun because it was more of a deep dive into a specific ride, where before I was really planning kind of at a higher bird's eye view of like, okay, this is where it fits, this is what it needs, and go. It already kind of existed.
So this was new for you in that regard.
Exactly.
And then you really got to, so the other thing to clear up is you are, after it's concepted, you're sort of step one, because I notice when we go through a lot of these images, it's your formal diagrams that people then illustrate and concept on top of.
Correct.
And that's so that their art is usable?
Well, that, and because this was an existing ride, we had a lot of existing constraints. So the building was already built, the walls were already there, we couldn't move any of those. So really what we worked together to figure out, okay, here's the scenes that we want to focus on, here's the view we want at this point in the ride. So I would draw those so that concept art could draw over them and actually knew that it was the real walls and the real space that they were using.
Right, and then concept art does that, and then it is remarkable as we go through all this, you see that, like, for me, I look at your diagrams and I look at the concept art, and then it doesn't make any sense how it's physically going to exist. It still is like, so that was another question I have for you, is when you do this from scratch, so with this, like, power drops, all of the complex stuff about a building and that, are you always aware of all that?
Yeah, so we had to be extra aware with that with this because everything existed. You know, we could add things here and there, but we were pretty limited into what we could add to the building because the building exists. You know, they already have power. They already have.
So that's kind of nice for you in some ways, right?
In some ways, yeah. It means that you're more limited, but sometimes that means that you can be more creative and have a little bit more expanding to do because you know those constraints right up front.
Yeah, it does really help. I mean, you know, the first thing we ask is, can we move the wall just a little bit? You know, and it's like, no, we just know, like 3 feet. We just need 3 more feet in this room, and it's like.
No, absolutely. Some things are also super critical because, like, you only have like a certain amount of wattage to work with things. So like we have these huge ideas and we want this giant
2 sick,
right?
2 sick.
So electricity and 2 sick kind of need to work together.
Or not at
all.
And a lot of the walls, we did end up demoing a portion of a wall, but that wall that we wanted to demo completely had electrical in it, so we had to keep a portion of it because that already existed. We're not going to redo the building for our ride, and so there's some tricky parts like that we came up against too.
You punch a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
Surprise!
Right.
Components.
Right. 4 more weeks.
So if you look behind us, so this is basically over by Brant, right behind Brant. That's Zone 0, and Zone 0 goes here. Let's see. So Zone 0 goes into 1. Look at this. We're having fun now. And 1 goes down into 2. 2 goes up into 3. And look at us maximizing all this space going around the building. Around to 4, 5, and then you exit. So I understand, Emily, that 0 and 8 are connected thematically, correct?
Yeah, that's basically the entrance to the ride. So entrance and exit.
Back to reality.
Yep.
Right. So working with constraints and then making narrative to go around. Okay, Chris, go to our next one. Woo! All right, so I like this one a lot. Yeah, I'm gonna go like this actually. So, so Brittany, tell me about. This is the original ride. This is Ghostbuster. Bankers. Ghost Bankers.
Ghost Bankers?
Ghost Blasters. Ghost Banker. Okay,
Ghost Bankers.
All right.
Ghost Bankers 2.
So you look at this, and do you get a headache? Were you relieved? What are your first thoughts?
Yeah, well, a lot of it was exciting because we had pieces that we knew that we could probably reuse.
Okay.
So what we were trying to do is identify what exists already in the ride and how we could use that to our advantage. So in this diagram, what we're showing really is where the platforms exist, because we know we probably don't want to rip out the platforms. We
What
want
is
to
a
reuse
platform?
those.
Explain me a platform. Like an elevated where the art is encased. Okay,
Exactly, and that's really just
You also
because
hide wires in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. That's where wires go.
And really, a lot of it is because you're on a ride vehicle. It's trying to elevate the art a little bit, so your viewpoint is actually
and you're
better.
not looking at the floor.
Exactly.
Per se. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and so we're also identifying where existing rigging is, where we can utilize things that are already hanging in the space because we know that the building is already built to hang things from those locations.
Okay.
And where the existing fog curtain is.
What does that mean to me? That means nothing.
So a fog curtain is basically a big giant thing that spits out fog in a stream that you can project onto. So it becomes a projection screen, which is really fun.
And we kept that. That's in there. No fog curtain. Gotta go. We're out of here.
Unfortunately, no fog curtain for the time being.
Okay, but it might.
Yeah, there
come
were
back
complications
with the fog.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an unruly, gaseous.
Yeah. But there is some fog.
Okay.
That we have.
Good.
Yeah.
Because fog is important. You don't. There's no disbelief without fog.
And that was another one that we were like, well, maybe we'll move the fog curtain, but this thing that houses the fog curtain is weighed like, I can't even remember how much, it weighed a ton.
Yeah.
And so to move it, we had to stick to one of the existing beams of the ceiling. We couldn't just like put it anywhere.
Right.
So we were also limited by that. So moving it became kind of a not a possibility.
Right, a deal breaker. All right,
Yeah.
Chris, can we go to the next one? And then here's some of our friends. So, Brittany,
Yes.
right behind you is my favorite person in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Das ist a doctor! And this is the guy who showed you how to use the conglomeratron.
Dr. Fearstruck.
Dr. Fearstruck, that's a great name. That's like Stormborn.
Yeah,
Denarius
exactly.
Fearstruck.
Yeah, he's great.
I also like the guy from The Descent that wasn't in The
Oh,
Descent.
yeah, he's good.
Not in here, you don't.
Yeah,
It's
I
really
like
good.
Lucifer. I think he's behind Grant, maybe.
Oh, there's Lucifer?
Bucifer.
Bucifer.
Oh, I think he's behind.
Oh, he's behind the robot.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a pretty cute name.
Oh, wait.
Oh,
No, he's
Bucifer.
behind there. You can't see him.
Oh,
Yeah, he
poor
was kind
guy.
of great.
So I do have one technical question for you. So the sensors that the conglomeratron was shooting at, were those another element that cannot be moved?
We can move them.
Oh, that's cool.
So, which became really nice because we moved them onto the elements that we're using to trigger.
Oh, very cool. As they should be.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
One-to-one connection. All right, Chris, take us through to the next one. Okay, so I was looking at this one. Are
Yeah.
those all our sensors, the little red diagrams?
They are
there?
not. These are unistrut placements.
What
so
does that mean?
That means it's a little piece of metal that goes on the roof between usually two beams, and it's what you can hang stuff from. And in the case of this building, it's a super light frame building, which meant we were really limited into what we could hang. So we had to have an engineer come out and tell us, hey, you can only hang this amount in this amount of space. So they gave us a little chart that said, you know, if you're hanging 10 pounds, has to be 5 feet away from the next thing that you're hanging, and that can only be this amount of weight. So we went through and figured out where we wanted to hang things and drew those in so that Elitch could go in and install those for us per the engineer specs that our engineer gave us.
Okay, awesome. And then I'm going to show my ignorance into
Totally
your
fine.
purvey of knowledge, but how far, you couldn't in a million, that is literally only an engineer can come in. So you know so much about a building, its structural, its integrity, and where things should go, but an engineer comes in and is like, and you need that? You wouldn't trust yourself spec? Okay.
No.
I assume, okay.
Yeah, an engineer really needs to do that. I could say like, this building looks like this.
I've done a few dark
like,
rooms.
yeah.
Right. Might be
And my background's in architecture. I could kind of know, but an engineer needs to tell us how much it can hold.
And so that's pretty much your line in the sand, is certain things need an engineer for you then to reconfigure the numbers and the specs and all that.
Yeah, and we actually, we were pretty lucky. We didn't have to have a lot engineered on this ride, but we did have an engineer come in, the same engineer at the end, and re-look at everything to make sure that what we built could actually hold itself, because we wanted to make sure, like, we know that what we're doing at Meow Wolf is great and is up to our standards, but is that Elitch's standards? Is that the city of Denver's standards?
Yeah.
So they came in and said, like, yeah, good, you're good to go.
And that's another interesting point for people at home, is the standards for doing exhibits in every state are different.
Yeah.
Does it vary by county, or is it just by state?
By county. Some counties have different,
Nightmare. Okay.
It's kind of crazy.
So you better research before you start an exhibition factory.
But you had asked before, like, so all this stuff's happening at the same time. All of this stuff is happening. We're all glued together in unison, figuring this stuff out all in the exact same moment.
Okay, and you have your private time when you actually do, and same for each of you. When you go, will you go to the next slide? Because I think we're getting into Brant's turn.
Yeah.
All right, so Brant.
Yes.
Do tell. This is, as far as I could tell, and going through this when I talked to you, this is the beginning of concept art for you.
Correct.
And you knew that you were literally concepting, but a lot of the ride would be a gaggle of artists freestyling based on your concepting.
That's correct.
Okay.
So when we first started, I actually worked very closely with the creative directors on this ride and made sure that leads and writers and art directors all had their stake in the actual ride, and that's a lot of people. So it's basically writing down all the needs and expectations of all these different groups and people.
Right.
And then parsing that information out into what you see essentially right here, which was sort of my overall view of of most of the ride at one glance.
Right.
Because part of this work was also being utilized by the creative directors to actually pitch this project to the partner.
So precedes
production.
Did
Actually,
we
even
have the
precedes
yes?
concept art.
So we had the yes, but we didn't have their sign off on what we were definitely planning to do. Is that so? That's
That
what
is,
you were getting
yeah.
to.
And then basically, I was meeting with Emily and Katie and Matt and everyone, and we were meeting in the mornings to go over. I was basically developing this sort of with them over a series of like a month, basically.
Okay.
And then at that point, once all the stakeholders were happy, we had enough of a package to basically bring out to the rest of the teams at Meow Wolf and figure out how we parse that information.
Right.
The cool part is that having like a long, extensive history in concept art, there's all sorts of approaches towards it. And one of the ones that's really fun here is being able to just kind of design and riff without it being too critical, knowing that the creative directors can have that room to actually explore even further beyond the concept artists and take it to where their exact vision.
Right.
Yeah.
And that allows you to, there's an interesting thing where you can fish, but you don't have to catch.
Totally, yeah.
And that is not, that's sort of, while this is the work that never gets all the credit it should, because it's the layers that get covered and reused and repurposed and iterated upon.
90% of concept art may not even be used on a project.
Ever.
Ever.
Right. Yeah.
Or the public may never see it. Didn't mean to cut you off, but that's
No,
most
totally.
people when they hear that are really like, oh my, like they have no idea that amount of resources gets pumped into something.
Yeah.
But finding out what you don't want is just as important as finding out what you want.
100%. And also, I think that's why I think this is very important, because this takes, not that it's important to take the magic out, but it's important to inject the humanity in. And I think a lot of people don't realize how many wrongs make a right for an artist or a designer or anyone. And so, and then also I found it interesting, you were talking about parsing. As we go through this entire stream, we'll bring on all the people that this shit got parsed to, you know? So you'll be seeing, okay, so Brand, talk us through a little here. You start, this is zone 0.
Right next to me, starting at sort of zone 0, the point was we are going to, actually even behind me, that little dot.
Yeah, that's a dot. Singularity.
That little dot right there. That's the point of singularity. And contrary to everyone's belief, illustrating the point of singularity is quite difficult. So
it's a period. Yeah, right.
So what we knew is, the creative directors knew right away that the fabric of existence was going to unfold onto the viewer as they're pulled through this ride, almost like existing in a film, and they get to see this thing, almost like was it terraforming on planet almost?
Yeah,
almost like that, where as you go forward with the ride, the reality is forming with you, and you're helping it form.
Right, and that is part of the process we were talking about earlier, to have this generative thing that includes you while you're buckled into a ride, and that has to be delivered through the walls and the art.
Right, yeah, like the idea is that the entire landscape everything starts out as this tiny point of light that comes out of the cosmic egg, and then as you continue to help it grow, it evolves into this fully realized landscape that eventually gets so big and so complex that it collapses under its own weight.
Once
and then,
again, into singularity.
Returns to the singularity and back to the cosmic egg. So that was really our idea of.
That's like puberty.
So how? Yeah.
Fucking shit is happening.
It's like hyper puberty.
Hyper puberty space. So then, okay, so Brant, we go, and then we get into geodesic.
That's correct. So basically, you're sort of like I don't know. I guess your sort of grid work kind of starts to form facets at that point, because basically a grid is just a filled-in plane, right? To start to form actual planes on right?
Yeah.
So and then basically,
I get it now.
Point, you know, it's funny. We actually tried to. The goal was also to get sort of something in between 8-bit and 16-bit too.
Yes.
Right. Yeah,
right.
Also, yes, and there's a
totally.
Timelessness to this that makes you think of material you are familiar with in a younger form, but also a cleanliness and an execution that makes it a new.
Totally.
Rendering of that grid style, that low poly thing.
Yeah, and then as the land forms, it gets more complex. We actually have sort of life forms form with the land and kind of crawl out of the ooze, basically, and then actually in turn become more complex life forms by actually also attaching themselves to each other.
Right.
So and then from there it just kind of explodes into a contemporary sort of narrative, and then a bunch of guest artists. And I don't want to ruin it for anybody.
Yes, yeah.
But this is sort of the launch into that universe.
That's so beautiful. Chris, will you go to our next? Then we have this colored by the lovely Spencer.
Yeah.
And this is just another step in concept art.
Totally.
This is probably what you sent Elitch Gardens, not the black and white. Mm-hmm. I imagine.
Yeah.
That's what color's used for.
People see in color.
Yeah. So right. People do tend to see in color. Actually, it's just a team of dogs in a room. They just look at it.
Black and white.
Yeah. And then so this is I have to say that's kind of what, if I had to describe Dark Ride in one drawing, this actually is pretty much it.
Yeah.
before everyone deviates and shifts shape.
Cool, it worked.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to see even after it's done that
Totally.
it still holds.
Yeah.
So then we have a little example of sort of how this translates a little bit more purely. So basically, what I want to do is grab a schematic that goes to concept art and
Cool.
then go to a photograph.
That sounds
and
right.
This is Primordia. So once we go through this, we'll start diving into the actual zones and start firing through the actual work that everyone did. So this is you. Is that art actually from Mary, or is that your art?
So that art is actually, it's hard to, that art is actually from Mary.
Great.
So we drew the blank walls. This is, the scene you're looking at. Gave that to concept art.
Right.
Concept art drew this image. We took it back and we translated that into physical space. So you'll see the plan and elevation of what that actually looks like. And you'll see as we go on that evolved even more once the artist took it over.
Right. So, because I was going to ask, when you're dealing with like these elevations, like how in stone is? I imagine some of these artists were like, I ain't putting that plant there. I'm putting it here.
Exactly. Yeah. This is just really a general idea of like, okay, there's dimension here. There's probably some flats. There's going to be some dimensional sculpts. There's going to be like mural behind it.
Yeah.
And so we're calling out those details up here. You can't read it, but it's just calling out like there's dimensional sculpts, there's flats, there's murals. And really, that's all we were trying to show with this, is show Elitch in this package. There's going to be layers, and they maybe look sort of like this. And they kind of do, which is really surprising, actually. Yeah.
It's basically, it's realism, the to-do list, is what you prescribe, and then the artist, and then brand ad-libs, and then the artist on set ad-libs. So our next shot is actually, this is full. Is this Mary, or did you do a little dabbling?
This is Mary.
This is all Mary.
This is full Mary. Yeah.
We'll have Mary in here later, rapping and beatboxing about what she did on the ride.
Nice.
And so what are these little numbers? I see these little red dots. Are those places my conglomeratron can shoot?
That was in
red
theory
dots?
where they were supposed to go, but it was just a loose layout because while on site, it was actually become super evident where they actually need to go.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right. And did you have a cap on how many conglomeratrons you can have per zone, Emily? Do you know? Were they just like, go anything you want? You have 50, 60.
I think there was definitely a cap on what we could handle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what they remind me of? Is that it's like you shoot air guns at a carnival.
Yeah.
And then
Exactly,
the
yeah.
thing and the
Yeah.
Or the balloon,
That's
right? Or the
exactly
water.
it.
Yeah. Oh, the clown. You fill his head. What a weird motif that is.
I know, it's just
Fill
like
the clown's head
waterboarding
with
the
water.
clown.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is more fully realized concept art, and you can see the layering. And then again, I assume that's an elevation in the upper, that corner over there, right
Floor
above you?
plan, yep.
Yeah, wow, showing all the layers. Okay, Chris, now, boom.
Wow.
So this is in process. As you can see on the top, that is tentative projection mapping. That is not a periodic table. The E2, 3, 4, all the way through to like emojis it turns into at the end there.
It kind of does.
And in the back, if you see on the floor right behind me, whichever way I lean, that's the track covered in plastic. And this is your first view. And that's the beautiful Lance, who we'll have here on Wednesday, talking about all the art fabrication that these guys did. And that is basically a full frontal look at all of your hard work.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And who did the ladder? Because that is
That person stands so still,
That's
too.
right.
back
And I
there.
love the
It's like
candelabra. Which I didn't see in the drop-down schematic.
Yeah, I think that is a leftover from Ghost Blasters.
Ghost Blasters.
Yeah.
Speaking of leftovers from Ghost Blasters,
Oh, yeah,
we
you
have
those guys?
this guy, Gary Potter, over here. So everyone's favorite. We actually we still have some knights and some other weird things here.
Skeletons.
Some remnants. Yeah.
So we really took everything that was in the ride and like reskinned it and repurposed it.
Yeah,
and,
there's
like,
one of
made it
these-
all into like
this-
you'll see it throughout the landscape. Yeah,
This is a
like-
tombstone from Ghost Blasters, if I'm not incorrect. We'll see a close-up
Yeah.
of it later on. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that there's remnants throughout.
And then like the one next to it that you can see with the bat on top of it is the
Oh,
same
that's
thing,
awesome.
except like we
So
totally
funny.
just redid it to be
great.
primordial.
So
trunked off.
did you while you guys were installing this, did one of the original like haunted house makers roll through to like judge you and see what's up right here?
If they did, they were
They didn't.
undercover.
Okay,
No.
they snuck in. Okay,
I
I,
didn't
was just
see it.
curious if one of them would emerge and be like, "It's pretty cool,"
Yeah,
or
right.
whatever. Just, it's no Ghost Blasters. But well, yeah. So that's pretty much it. That's how all your work subliminates. into a lot more hard work. And then this is another in-process shot, which we'll be returning to later when we actually walk through Primordia. And you can see all the layers. There's still stuff getting unpacked. It's right behind me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little Home Depot bucket.
Yeah. I think did that stay or did that get pulled, Emily?
You'll have to ride the ride and tell us.
That's right. Yep. I do.
Yeah, we might have forgotten a few things.
All praises due to Home Depot. Crazy shout out. Home Depot is where Meow Wolf exhibits come from. It comes from people like us and a little bit of Home Depot. Salt, pepper at Home Depot. Yeah, I want to thank you guys for being here for this Ravel. Now, we're actually going to bring on some of us. Well, I guess we're going to go into Zone 0. Are we going to start this? Let's do this. So, Zone 0 is actually, we're going to get Nate. And Britt, we're going to have you back up later for more Light Tunnel. Thank you so much. So, okay, so Zone 0 is the beginning. And this is the Q dot, which we talked about earlier. And this starts your adventure. So, there's 2 Sickery involved in this, where we have ML Gam, who is Dr. Ghost Man. What was his name again?
Yeah, Fearstruck.
Fearstruck.
Yeah, so we had the pre-existing animatronic of Dr. Fearstruck, and we knew we wanted to reskin him to be a different kind of character. But it's really cool because, I mean, just like to get to work on a sculpture that moves, I mean, this character is actuated, so it blinks, it turns its head, it raises its hand. It's
so
like,
cool. Yeah, and then we're going to have Danny in on Wednesday when we talk about all the tech fab and all that stuff. Come on in, Nate. Everybody, this is Nate. Nate is a new friend of ours. Hey, and Nate, you do concept art as well, huh?
Yes, I'm on Brand's team.
Yeah.
And you do primarily, without giving away secret to your life, it's After Effects. You do a lot of animation.
Yeah, a lot of 3D animation, After Effects. Mostly Cinema 4D is what I love to use. Got super into it. Learned online, self-taught. So
boom.
Nice. So not to brag,
don't be scared.
Yeah, exactly.
And voice,
yes, as well. Yeah.
Oh man.
I came off of a dog bone commercial that I did for a friend,
Wow.
And so...
he sells dog bones, like, out of the back of his
Well, a company hired him to do it,
That makes more sense.
And it was like these, like, manly, strong dogs when they need, like, extra strong bones. And so I did, like, the rough and tumble, almost like a Ford truck commercial, but for dog bones kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
And so yeah, I did that, and then luckily Emily gave me the opportunity for my next voice.
She saw that commercial. She was like,
I was a fan. You really captured it.
That's amazing. You did not really do like Ford truck bone, dog bone voice for ML Gam though, correct?
No.
Okay. It was a little, we're actually not, that's a secret. You have to actually go and ride this ride in Elitch Gardens to hear his fantastic ML Gam voice.
Yeah.
So then,
I did it too.
You did voice too. That's why I heard the effeminate. So is it layered?
Yeah. So
and
the
audio
idea,
team did it. The layer?
Yeah.
Okay,
so the idea behind it is that it's kind of like a collective consciousness. It's like a collaborative of like sentient molecules kind of connecting together and forming a creature that is forming itself into human shape to be able to communicate with you. So our idea was like, okay, well, let's give it multiple voices. So
that's rad.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Were you able to like leave some of the android parts of it from the animatronic?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because once you pull that skin off, man,
yeah,
it's pretty awesome.
He's like Slim Goodbody, basically. It's like all this. You did such a gorgeous job. We have really cool gifts coming up and stuff. Okay, so Chris, look, Brant, there he is. Okay. So Brant, they were like, yeah, we're gonna take all the skin off of Dr. Fearmonger.
Totally, and this was just a first pass. We always knew because part of what I didn't accomplish in this actual drawing was figuring out how glitched out this character could become.
Right.
And so because this character is also obviously very connected to the actual experience and the ride themselves.
And
so this was a first
part
pass.
of the direction, right? That that dimensions are breaking ML Gam and
well, kind of. I mean, like all we really knew at the beginning was like we want to pull the skin off of this thing, and so it's like you pull the skin off and like this is pretty much how the character looks.
Okay, cool, right.
Totally.
Awesome. And then you were like, I'm gonna give him a coat.
So we were like, let's make it much more crazier. This was just a first pass.
Right, we have the next one his head gets changed. Emily, it's you. And and so there he is with his conglomeratron. sort of similar body. Oh no, I see you made the right leg get geodesic.
Yeah.
So this kind of starts to get the idea of this is a character that is forming its body sort of out of elements of the landscape. So that's why you sort of start to see the low poly happening on the leg.
I love that. I love that. All right, and then here's our GAM man.
So good.
This is a GIF of GAM happening real time. Emily made this today. So if you slow down your mind, you can see this flesh, Mr. Goodbody happening.
Yeah,
going
so
into the world.
This first frame is basically how it was when we pulled everything off. Yeah. And not only that, like the character like actually had teeth. We think they were real human teeth in the gums.
You know, you can get that analyzed. Forensics will check that out and be like, yes.
Yeah, so
we're
we're like, okay, maybe not the teeth, maybe we can get rid of those teeth. But yeah, like the idea really being like, how much can we strip this down? Because like what I really loved about it was like the negative space effect that you get. And then so I knew I wanted to use L wire, so you have electroluminescent wire that runs throughout the frame. And like all of the colored wire and the colored shapes is really, you know, meant to be kind of referential to the subway system.
Right.
Because it's like, in the end, it's like, what is a human body other than
circuits.
Like a subway
Connected.
system of various like vascular and nervous
sort
of structures to convey one thing from one point to another. So.
And then you just aesthetically assemble, and this is like by eye, right? I saw pictures of you. You kind of you had the ugly, rigid bone body, and you just made it beautiful.
Well, yeah, you could say it stays ugly for like a very long
he's kind of finding himself.
Definitely like
puberty strikes back.
Points working on this where I was like, I don't know if this is going to work out. But then the idea also is this character is standing next to a wormhole.
Right.
And so part of the arm, this used to be an arm that was holding a cane when it was the professor. And so we knew it had to be kind of supporting itself on something, and so I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool if this character itself is kind of getting sucked into this wormhole and like kind of like stretching out in spaghetti.
And not stressed about it. He's like, well,
totally
whatever.
I'm
not that upset.
For ML Game.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah. So Chris, you're going to take us on to our next little diagram. So, and then here he is statically. I will say my favorite thing is that hand. Hold that hand, Emily. Yeah, cardboard hand of joy. So cool.
Yeah, we had to put a cardboard hand on there because the original hand was used to point the gun, and we were like, oh, we don't think we're going to really use that as part of this character, so we took that off. Didn't have a hand. Like Danny basically mocked up this cardboard hand so we could like program.
Oh, did you approve that hand? So that went through the whole system? That's great.
I mean, I requested extra fingers, but we didn't have the budget, so you know how it goes.
We don't have the cardboard for that. Yeah, it's really amazing. And that's actually at CAT, so that's actually before you went down there.
And you can kind of see the hand floating above it.
Oh, and there it is, going into.
Yeah, that's rad.
And it's also, like, this is the heart of the character is the cosmic egg that you'll see in the logo.
Yeah, which is gorgeous. Recurring motifs. Look at all that stuff. So what's some of that crap you got on there? Is that like a car battery? There's like a RC battery?
Yeah,
you just had electronics?
All of the actual sort of like mechanical looking stuff you see is part of the animatronics. So this is what's making it move, basically. And like we didn't change or take away any of that. So all of those parts are actually functioning.
Aren't they like they're counterweights too? So it moves smooth.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like just the right amount of like disturbing, but kind of cool and like
totally
trippy.
I sent you a picture, and then you were like, "Oh wow, it looks like something out of my nightmare."
Yeah.
Like this was early on.
Yeah, this wasn't this fleshed out.
I love the face too. Just the neon musculature. It's so good. Because I remember seeing the first. I actually saw that picture we had before, and I was like, "Oh wow, it's just a skeleton." And then I saw this, and I was like, "No."
Plus, we've captured like emotional range in the face.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like that's amazing.
Yeah. And can he still blink?
Still blinks.
Still blinks.
Yeah.
Sounds like
original eyes
glued
still
together.
there.
I love it. Okay, so now we're getting into some more concept art, and this is actually the Q experience, which we know was handed down and predestined for us by the Ghost Blasters. And then you guys were, is that meant to be Q? What is this? Is this where ML Gamma is living?
It was a first pass Q. And then in the middle, where that middle arrow is, you kind of, it sort of shows the sort of like area that you line up. Well, let's see. Yeah, right there is where that bottom arrow is. Oh, sorry. How do we point?
Come on in, yeah. All the way down?
This one.
Oh.
Straight down is where actually that character exists.
I see.
But this was a first pass because we wanted to figure out how we can keep interest level up while people are waiting in line, right? They could be waiting a long time in line.
Yeah.
So we also have created some there was some short form that was created like in video, right? In animation.
Yeah, we're going to get into that in a second, which is really cool. And where does that play in that scheme? Is it on a screen actually, embedded?
Yeah, it's on a screen right next to MLGAM.
That's so
and
cool.
there's a couple more screens as you're standing in line further down.
Right. So it doubles as a first-time user experience and tutorial, as well as like entertainment for the people waiting.
So some warnings, what not to do.
Keep your hands in the
You want to keep all your molecules together,
Right. I like that. And that's I bet that was the fun part was appropriating every shred of what goes into a ride. We have all this cool graphic design, all the signs are appropriated to watch out for wormholes, keep your molecules in your own body. Chris, will you take us to our next little diagram? Yes, and then a little closer here.
Yeah, so it gets a little more realized. Like even if this is not ultimately the direction it goes in, we just keep fleshing it out as we're talking through these meetings and getting closer and closer to the final vision.
And I mean, this is something I would have loved if we actually could build like these columns. You know, I mean, like in the end, it kind of turned out well. Like the structure that is existing there for the stage, we kind of just have to go with that because of just budget and time.
And that work is better spent in the experience you go into. Yeah, it's like it's just that's not really even too sick. That's just like diminishing returns with hard work you already have to do.
Yeah, smart planning.
You just gotta kind of decide. So you keep those at your heart.
A lot of times we take things as far as we can go in order to reel them back.
Right.
Too.
Absolutely.
Knowing that we already don't have a budget, but we've captured something, and then maybe we can figure out some creative way to engineer that, or to work with other departments and actually figure out like a smarter, better, cheaper approach.
Create the same effect.
Totally.
Or miniaturize
just
that.
maybe approached a little differently.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Chris, what do we got next up in this progression of happenings? Oh, and this is one of Sahai's drawings, right?
Yep.
We're gonna have Sahai up later, and this guy looks sad to me. He feels he's like
he just finished
the
ride.
Just fired.
He just finished.
or that one, yeah.
And this is cool. And so this is also more of the science lab early postulation for what the Q experience could be, right? Yeah. So cool.
I think the idea was also, Emily, was that we were trying to figure out if there's artifacts around this main host of the ride, so you could see either what's been pulled from other dimensions or actually some of his experiments or their experiments,
And that kind of went away, right? It's not the lab anymore per se.
Right, I mean, because the existing stage is actually pretty small, and also it's very easy to sort of reach into that area. So, and there wasn't a lot of room, but it's I really love the thought process going on here with the egg in this little chamber and the alarm clock. It's it's so cool. Really it's I think that is exactly the kind of scientific direction we're going.
No, and that's really, and that's cool that it's there's so much talent that goes into this. It actually leaks out the side. You can't even use every good idea. It's it's an interesting meld of practicality, time.
Sometimes
budget.
those ideas end up in other projects, though.
Yeah.
We'll
That's
remember
great.
it, you know, so they find a home.
Every part of the buffalo. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. That's probably not an art term. All right, Chris, will you go on to our next, and then I think we're going to get into some of Nate's hard work.
Oh, yeah.
So our background this whole time is one of your pieces that is essentially the geodesic sunset from the mountain zone.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this is a still from one of the animations that you'll see when you're in line. So this is the monitors that Emily was talking about that are next to MLGAM. And so plays like a short introduction video / kind of giving you a rundown of what's happening, but it's it's just welcoming you to, Quantum Department of Transportation, and sort of just if you were to see a video before you got on the subway or something.
It's like an airplane.
Yeah,
Your basic airplane tutorial video. Yeah. But it's imagery heavy. Excuse me, which I like quite a bit.
Yeah, the whole thing it was a huge animation. It's all 3D animated in cinema, and then I worked with Emily and a couple other stakeholders. She wrote this really cool, ridiculous, crazy script, and so it follows it, and then that's when MLGAM is voicing this insane. I don't even know what to call it.
Unorthodox
exactly.
preparation for what comes next. Yeah. as prepared as you can get. Chris, you can go through. And so that's our donut.
Yeah,
which,
so as you can see, the donut becomes the Ouroboros, which was the previous image.
That's right. Snake eating its tail. Infamous positive imagery across all time. So it gets very circular. And then we also have some videos. So this is, so you have to actually go to Elitch Gardens to experience the full throttle experience. But this is us sprinkling. It's so cute.
Yes,
That's how donuts are made.
You're going to learn a lot. In the video, it's very educational.
Yeah.
You'll learn about the universe, kind of like how we are able to basically have quantum travel in this dark ride. You're going to learn exactly how we did that.
So you can do it at home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All you need is a donut.
Yeah, a donut and a
Cinema
Ouroboros.
4D,
Yeah.
and a snake that's long enough to eat. All snakes are long enough to eat their tail.
I think so.
If they stretch.
Do they?
They do. Yeah.
How could they not? I've never seen this. What do they? We'll do a whole other episode all about how snakes actually get their tail. Will you show us the next vid? Oh yeah.
Yes, this is part of the educational section.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, just little clips for now. You have to go to
a donut.
Yeah, testing your knowledge on multiversal travel.
And this is keeping all of our line waiters entertained as they go. Go on to the next one. Oh, that's the last one. Yeah, so if you actually want to see the thing in its entirety and understand exactly how it informs, you're going to have to go to Elitch Gardens. But for now, we got to show you at least how a dog becomes a donut.
You're going to learn a lot of other things too as well.
That's right. It's stacked. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing.
Thank you. Yeah,
cool.
It was
It's
awesome.
a pleasure to have you.
I was happy to be involved.
So we are going to grab now, Emily, we are going to talk about all of the graphic design that goes into a thing like this. Yes, which are all the layers. And this is like what we were talking about earlier, the amount of iteration. Like when we get to Luke and the logo, it's so much iteration.
There's so much, yeah, and it's like that. Actually, like my background is more in graphic design, so that's like really the world I'm coming from.
You did the Meow Wolf logo, did you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So like to be involved in that process with like this team of amazing graphic designers we have is like
liberating.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's like wings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love that too when you're like concerned that you might not be able to do it, but the person next to you can.
Yeah, it's like just all we're doing really is like this collective like 300+ person mind meld every day.
No, it's so cool. It's so cool. Hey,
Yeah.
Caitlin, come on over here.
Hi.
Hi, what is this? Is this paper?
It's a gift for you.
Oh my God! Hey guys. So a little PSA. We actually we have a special code. If you go to the Meow Wolf store and you put in Dark Ride, it's 25% off all the cool stuff like Snaggy hat. What else? Snaggy, I can see through you.
There's a void in his eye.
There's a void inside all these heads. So if you go and type in Dark Ride, you can have stuff and wear it at night or in the day or when you're out riding dark rides. We have some new friends, Caitlin and Luke. Welcome to the Green Screen Universe. So what do you guys do here?
We are both lead graphic designers here.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we do branding and signage and graphic design stuff.
A lot of Photoshop.
A lot of Photoshop.
Illustrator.
Yeah.
What else? Where do you spend most? What are the axes you grind?
Typographic axes.
Oh yeah.
Real nerdy stuff, like
Picas, get really into it, with the picas.
Yeah, I just melt when people are like, "Is this vectorized?" I'm like, I just use Photoshop horribly. I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of different like disciplines in one because it's a lot of drawing and a lot of technical stuff and like dimensions and like building stuff to scale like that with a lot of the murals that we did was a lot of making sure that things were at 1/4 scale for the printers and making sure that it was going to render properly, making sure it was vectorized.
And the difference between you and me is you understand the actual schematics that result in something being fabricated correctly and being in the right resolution. That's what I never do. Right.
In theory.
And then we're going to get into this in a bit, but basically like when you take this imagery and it gets like wrapped around the buggy, had you done that before where something's going from a program onto this physical thing that has dimensions you don't?
No, I'm not very good in 3 dimensions usually, and definitely have not wrapped any graphics
you need
around
a third eye
thing. I've been working on that.
Yeah. Is that what's under the bangs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep it secret.
Chris, will you show us our first image? Look at that! It's how the buggies begin. So, this is like, people would glean over this and be like, the buggies just came that way. Oh, we're all sitting. I love it. It's the romance. So this is actually, Brant began this, and these are his initial designs. And again, I think he was just freestyling. I know, they're really cool. I bet they were like, you can't add fabricated elements.
Well, we had the cars from the existing ride.
Right.
And we kind of talked, can we change them? Can we add on? And it just the timeline was just too tight for us to really be able to do any of those things.
How many cars is it? Do you know?
I think there's 9. I want to say.
Interesting number.
Yeah,
9.
I want to say 9.
I like it. So, Luke, did this go over to you? You kind of saw these, and then started your path.
I don't actually remember if I ever saw these or not.
Okay, you were just like, I got these.
This was very. This was one of the first things we did for the ride.
Right.
That just had to be done because we found out in November of last year that they were needing the graphics so they could start painting the cars immediately.
Interesting, and they were painted somewhere in Denver through people
at the park at Elitch Gardens.
Oh,
yeah, they
I
have
see,
a whole
and they
team
have
of
their
people.
whole team.
Yeah,
okay, that makes sense. Right.
So we had a very short window to kind of come up with the look for these.
And that means that his was even shorter because this happened first, right?
Yeah, we
can check the next one out, Chris. We'll take us right into Luke's handiwork. Yeah.
Yeah. So these were some initial passes, and so a lot of what I was looking at, I don't remember seeing that concept art of the cars, but we'd spent some time developing the brand for QDOT, like Emily was talking about,
right.
And so
the Q existed.
Well, yeah, we made that, and then we were like, we have to apply that to things right away, and there were still aspects of that brand system that I think were undefined.
And QDOT is the very beginning of a branding project that we started for Denver,
right?
Which, if people don't know, it's gonna probably end up being this brand that people will see again and again.
You'll see this motif again. So that means that you had to commit way early on this Q.
Yeah.
Right. You're like, shit, we wanted.
We made 200 of them to choose from.
Yeah.
So anyway,
we won't do those in this. So,
but we had a deco influence, and a lot of the concept art I had seen. I remember seeing a lot of pieces that Mary drew of things that are going to be in Denver, and I was drawing a lot of inspiration from that. Awesome. So just really trying to throw out a lot of different ideas to see what resonated with Emily, and then kind of work together to move it forward.
Did Brittany give you these carts, or did you get this schematic from schematics.com? How does that work?
They came from Elitch?
We got them from, I think Nora sent them over, one of the project managers.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, we'll have her on Wednesday too.
Yeah.
They had all the documentation for the original ride,
of course,
which was great to work off of.
Yeah, saves that time. So will you take us forward, Chris? Yes, and then there it is.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So when we were working on, there were several designs that we made, and then Emily had a preference for one of them. Then we started working back and forth with colors, and part of it was figuring out, do we make the colors on this correspond to some bigger QDOT brand? Do they correspond to the Kaleidoscape logo? Or also we had this limitation of this color system that none of us had ever worked in before.
Oh, so that's not Pantone, whatever they're saying.
Well, it is RAC.
Yeah.
Oh, that's, I don't even know. Just explain me that.
You don't even know.
I don't even know that we understand it.
Red as color, what is it?
It's at least what we had, the selection of colors we had was really limited.
Yeah.
We were very just wow, this is the pink we can use.
20 oranges and 2 greens.
I remember hundreds of grays and browns. Which wasn't quite.
So you're saying to me that this is when you go from RGB to CMYK, but worse, or the inverse of that?
Yeah.
So
I think limitations
an even smaller gamut.
Limitations can be good, and I think they helped us get in a direction. I love the way these turned out.
Oh, it's popping.
So
but that is crazy. That's the brightest pink we can get.
Sheesh. Yeah.
Man, the pink gods are angry at that being the upper limit, but that's so cool. Chris, will you take us forward? So, and then we have, look at that. There it is, all wrapped and done and approved.
Yeah.
It's missing 2 6s on the front, though.
Yeah, so I went through and kind of measured out. I scaled this up to scale, and then went through and measured out every single section to give the width of those lines so that the team at Elitch could paint them accordingly.
My God.
And they would email us and be like, oh, actually, there's another line that goes here. What does this do? So we're back and forth, just I can't understand what you're talking about.
I don't.
This is 2D.
Right, when I looked, Chris, will you go to the next photo? Because it actually, I think this is them painting it.
Yeah.
That's our paint wizard. So what blows my mind is this arm, all the way over there. Those lines that wrap around the back of the car. I don't understand in Photoshop how you even have confidence that you did that right. Like, how do you?
Honestly, I would give all the credit to the Elitch team. They did an awesome job painting those. And yeah, they totally got it. And any questions that came up, they were really responsive and like, you know, I don't know, we had a really good back and forth. And then it was kind of like at a higher level. And then I remember a lot of correspondence with the team that actually does this work. And
really breezy. They were really good at it.
They
That's
did.
Cool.
I mean, I remember
they
when
took
we
your
got
pain away.
Yeah, I remember when we got this picture, and I was just like, "Oh my God, they're looking so good!" I was really excited.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Yeah, it's really, really awesome. Chrissy, you can take us through. There they are, all polished, all 9 of them. That's the 9th one. They look so good. Yeah, and then we have some of them actually. I believe in our next photos are them actually in the queue. And behind that, Caitlin, we're going to get into more of this muraling. Emily, you did this tube mural that's back there, right?
I did, yes. This is the one section of the multiversal subway system.
I love it. I love it. Can you go to, is Jersey on it or no Jersey? Hey, look!
Yeah.
These are locals. Meow Wolf fan base.
Meow Wolves.
That's right. Big tube worm driving, just how I like it. And then here we have the full mural, which is absolutely beautiful. What did you do this in, Emily? Your mind?
This was Adobe Illustrator.
Illustrator, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, really just being so inspired by how cool subway maps are and just wanting to make them like 200 times more complicated.
Right, 100%. Yeah.
I had to be stopped from working on this because I just wanted to keep adding more
No, it wasn't me.
Cool.
Massimo Vignelli's like rolling over in his grave like, you made it so complicated.
Oh, it's so great. And then this does not have rack color restrictions, correct?
Nope.
Great.
Yeah, we got rid of that.
This is digitally printed.
That's digitally printed. And then how does that work? I assume we are you guys are now masters of digitally printing something in the resolution you want and the quality you want.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is like based on the printers. Like every printer is I mean, better printers will help guide you through that process and how to set up your files. And a lot of times printers will help to make sure your colors are correct and all that stuff. And I think it's a lot of just like I could maybe figure out how to set up like a print job on my own, but I think it's all like having really good printers to help you like take something from start to finish and understanding what they're asking you to do and meet them halfway.
And that's really cool because the same way that everyone in this company helps one another where they're weak or strong at a certain thing, we actually rely on third parties when we get down to the nitty gritty.
Definitely.
It's either us and it's nice when you can have that pain removed by those people.
Well, and like Emily said, she made this in Illustrator, and so that's a vector program, which means you can just scale things up like without losing any quality. So that's
vectorizing is one of the coolest things, like to say that you get to do as a graphic designer for people who don't know what that actually is.
Yeah. You're like in reality, you're like
cool.
spending a lot of time on it, but you're like, I'm vectorizing.
It's true, and then that's also the thing. Being an unprofessional Photoshopper, I'm on the phone doing a T-shirt or whatever, and they're like, "Did you vectorize this?" And then I have to just shrink.
Yeah.
Be like, "No."
Sounds like it just dissolves and then like disintegrates into like
like
light atoms or something.
It's basically redrawing, vectorizing. It re-smooths the line, and it makes things ready to be scaled infinitely and stay in the resolution you desire them to be in. More or less?
Yeah, everything.
How would you explain it?
Everything that's built in a vector program is basically built on this super complex mathematical system that I couldn't tell you how it's built, but the way that it's created means that you can scale it infinitely, and it'll just mathematically scale it. And since it's built in this system, it doesn't reduce the resolution at all.
Right.
It's
None
just
of this DPI shit.
No, yeah, it's just all like. It's math.
Why is everything in a vectorized why am I even doing stuff in DPI? Just because I'm layman?
Well, it can be really, really heavy. Like your
computer, I see.
They can be really hard on your computer.
That makes more sense.
It also works in a much less intuitive way, like in Photoshop and like Procreate, other like raster programs. You can basically paint in those, and you can't really do that in Illustrator.
No.
So
you can lay out wedding invitations
and also like textures and stuff like that. Like sometimes when you're trying to like vectorize textures, they don't quite turn out the way you would expect. There's sort of a limitation in like the range of, I guess, pixels. I mean, the pixels are what make it like extra, like give you textures and stuff in Photoshop. So, you know, a lot of times if you're working in Illustrator, you may bring in a raster texture to put over something in your Illustrator file, but that texture is not necessarily scalable.
Doesn't scale.
Yeah.
Right. You got to retract it at a certain point. Chris, will you take us forward to more vectorized goodness? Speaking of vectorized, this is Jayla's amazing mural. And did you work on this one too, Emily?
I mean, this was really mostly Jayla. I mean, this was like all Jayla.
She is. Yeah. This is like, we're gonna have Jayla on Wednesday. She did a lot of muraling and art fabrication and was down in Denver building the Stark Ride the whole time.
Yeah.
And this is like, I've been going through all these photos 24 hours a day for the last 3 weeks, and I spent you get over it, you've seen so much, but I spent 20 minutes just staring and zooming into this. It's really stunning.
This is definitely one that Jayla sent to our team to vectorize, because she built it all in Photoshop, I believe,
raster.
and then it was raster, so it could only scale up to a certain size. So we went through and redrew a lot of these elements, and which actually worked out great because we ended up delivering a lot of those vectorized pieces to our merchandise department, and they created products out of them. So it was like very much a cross-discipline project.
And then this getting vectorized because it is the outside mural on the largest front-facing wall of the building that Kaleidoscape is in. It's so cool. So just guesstimate, how many layers is that, girl?
Oh God!
Is that
at least? Well, the Photoshop layers, there were probably 100 Photoshop layers, and then I broke mine down into probably 20. It goes from like the background forward, so it's like everything that's like right in front is like all on its own layer on the very top, and then as you start getting back into space, it just goes like farther down on layers.
It's so cool. And then you can't see, there's little deer, there's little long-legged fawns in there, and that's one of your pins that you're wearing, right, Emily, which you can't really see right now. So and then Kat, I know, when we get to Wednesday's stream, go all the way up to the camera. Hey, buddy, it's me. Oh, he's too blurry again, but he's great. It looked amazing, though. So, and then Kat actually made those long-legged fawns, giraffe, giraffe.
That is cool. I like Geron.
Geron is pretty cool. So,
she made them.
Were they first before Jayla drew them? I was curious about the chicken and the egg.
Right? Yeah,
okay, cool.
They came first, and then we were like, yes, this
more
needs
of
to
these
be
guys.
around.
Yeah. So, and then our next photo is this on the wall, which is really cool to see. And I love that you can still see.
This is the outdoor queue line.
Yeah, Ghost Blasters is still behind it.
Yeah, kind of graveyardy.
There's like over to the left, there's still some tombstones and stuff. And then look at, you guys redid the plinth too, right?
And that got even more like painted up and stuff too. So the gargoyle on there. Yeah.
Oh, is he all like finished? Oh, I can't wait. Gives me something to see when I go visit.
But they had to stop installing the mural because it was too cold.
Oh, is that what happened?
They had to pause for quite a while. Yeah.
That's why I don't know about cold weather at all. What's it doing? The fans don't want it. The polar bear clubs want it. Chris, will you go to our next one and we get into S's?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just going to assume this is Kaleido. This is the Kaleido part.
This is the Kaleido part.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And what do you, I'd say, like, how many layers is this? This is crazy.
God. This one is at least 15 to 25, somewhere in there.
What do you do? Did you get yourself a Kaleido that you were, what are they called now? I can't remember the real word.
Kaleidoscope?
Scope, that's what it is. Scape just got in me and I'm lost.
I think it's Kaleidoscope, actually.
Just Kaleidoscope.
Yeah, we just scooped that art right out of there and just slapped it on. Yeah.
I assume that's what this was referenced by. How did you go, like there's just so many decisions here I'm looking at.
Yeah, this is some work in progress for a wall mural that is next to the subway mural. And just trying to like take elements based from the murals that I had been working on and using this app called Kimbo which basically like reflects things into this weird kaleidoscopic pattern, and it's a plugin for Illustrator. So I just went into Illustrator and it has like reflect and like kind of does these like snowflakey things to it.
So you experiment.
Kind of,
You're basically
like, you can kind of see like here, like these are letters from the logo.
Oh,
like
they
this
went
is
in
a
there
P,
too.
and then there's like wait, hold on.
And the Q dots in the
There's
middle.
some letters. There's a Q dot in the middle. There's
so cool.
there's like a there's an E.
Oh, the Geron! I didn't even see him.
Yeah, the Geron.
The Geron is that exterior.
thing.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, so this is some craziness happening.
I love it so much.
And it is like tons of layers, and basically it started with like one layer, and then I started creating masks with different layers where I could change the colors, and that's what created
I was going to
the
say,
other colors.
the only nightmare when I look at this as thinking about the human who made it is when they're like, can you just try this in another hue?
Yeah,
and you have all of those
Yeah.
colors that got to shift.
Yeah, and there was some like parts where I was throwing it into Photoshop so I could play with colors, and then going back into Illustrator to switch out colors, because I find it easier to like play with hue and saturation and stuff in Photoshop. So I would kind of go back and forth between those two
And
programs.
that's you with your clay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So we have more of these. That's
this
makes me
is
like
this is another part of
uneasy in a
the
good way.
Kimbo app. It's the plugin that creates tiles of just
so cool.
craziness and kind of
Does Kimbo come with a bong? I'm sorry.
It doesn't.
It looks like it's got
doesn't
that
even.
whole-
You don't even need it. It's just like
You're
you
right.
look at
This
it and you're
is
like,
it.
like
Gateway technology. I
Yeah.
love it. And then Chris, I think the next one is actually I think this is the
This
final that went on
is,
the
I
wall.
think, the final. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what's different? That I see the exterior shaping is different.
So that the
colors.
outside border is a lot simpler. The background just ended up being black. A couple of the layers below were turned off so that you could see some more black underneath it.
I like that a lot.
And that was really because we have this wall and we have this very specific dimensions. We wanted to really fill that wall while also keeping the black around it to distract you from the fact that you're in this like very raw building with like architectural elements that kind of take
Draw
you
the
out of
eye. Draw the eye.
experience.
Yeah, totally.
And there was also like up there, like actually kind of like in the middle, like this light. There's this like emergency light that is right here. So if you go on the ride and you see it, you know, it's actually kind of hard to see.
Wow.
I was like freaking out about it. I was like, this isn't gonna work. You know? I was like,
But
once
it's
you actually
distracting
put it-
enough. It's chaotic enough that people are just like, ugh.
It's just
yeah, it's chaotic enough you don't even notice. Which
Go to
is
the next
great.
one, Chris, and you'll see in there. Oh, we can't really see
like,
it,
can
but
you
that's
see where it is? Like barely.
No, yeah, you really can't. I love that too. It's so cool. So is that the door you go in, or is that behind you? That doesn't open, right?
So this, you are facing a wall, and you get in the car, you go toward this wall, and you take a left turn, and then you're in
Sharp
there.
left. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, it's fantastic. Okay, now, Luke. Luke, are you ready? Are you ready? See, I love, from whenever I start a new band, I have to make a new logo, and it is the hardest months of my human existence.
Yeah.
The amount of discern that goes into a logo is, it's like naming something. It's the hardest work. It takes the whole, everyone else's work to finish the entire thing. You almost have to think of the name the whole time, the logos. So, and then this, every letter different, that makes it even.
We didn't want to make it easy for ourselves.
Yeah.
So is this is square one for you?
Yeah, basically, like we had a super short timeline to come up with a logo to go into the teaser video that we released last fall.
I did the music for that. We showed that earlier.
Yeah. So
wait, what's a short time frame? A week? What are we talking?
Yeah, I think it was like a week.
A week, maybe 2 weeks. It was super fast.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
And so we basically decided before getting too far that we were going to make like a temporary logo. We were like,
okay,
this isn't enough time to make this like really great.
It stresses me out to think about the permanence of this in this time frame. Okay.
Yeah, and also knowing that like a ride is typically kind of defined by its logo. You know, that goes on all the merchandise and stuff like that.
I hadn't thought about
so
that. You're right.
Definitely wanted to make sure we were being like thoughtful about what we were doing. So Caitlin and I basically dove right in on this and just started doing. I mean, if we could show you everything that was done on this, it would be like a whole.
It would be
a
whole hour.
It's amazing.
But
so it's really.
Yeah, I noticed you like pulled this one up, and I was like, this is like stage 3.
I love this one. This one is like stressed out about itself. This one is like, I don't even know
that's how
what
I felt
say.
while I was making it.
I love it. I don't even know. It's happening in there.
Well, it was a unique challenge because like Emily kind of brought this up early in the design process, which was, it's a theme park ride, but more than anything else, it is one of the first rides designed by like a group of artists. So like trying to make it more artistic than your average theme park logo was like a big part of going through this process and like trying to make it weirder and cooler and like less boring.
Every
and
letter
typical.
is an individual. This is very different than the Meow Wolf logo.
Yeah.
And also really implying like the experience of the ride that is such a collage of so many different aesthetics.
Yeah, right. So it's really important to have it in there. And then, so what I'll notice, we'll get through to the final logo eventually, but the shape of that first one, in general, that's how the logo turned out. This coming out from the small O.
Yeah.
With a Meow Wolf
more or less
kind of retained itself.
I mean, we'd done a little bit of work.
Oh shit!
Here's some other compositions.
Getting crazy. There's like a heavy metal. Some of these got metal. I like it.
Yeah, we had one printed.
Is that a shuriken?
We had one printed in our office for a little bit that said Kaleidoscape, the darkest dark ride.
Yeah, like in metal font.
It was like in like black letter or something.
Yeah.
It was really metal.
But we'd seen we did a little bit of work on the pitch deck for this project initially, so we'd like read through kind of what was supposed to happen. So that idea of everything kind of emerging from a single point was something we wanted to try and think
I love
about.
that. The singularity. That's really cool.
For sure.
So that's really cool how like the connectivity with all these themes remains, even though you're not all in the one meeting the whole time.
Yeah.
It's not a tank with everyone in it, but it remains a think tank. What's going on under you, Caitlin? That one looks like
this
they did it on the bus on the way to work.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know what? I probably
Really
did do
tired.
this on the bus on the way to work.
It's really great. All right, Chris, what do we got? Oh, there's like Batman ears on the Meow Wolf on that one.
Yeah, things got weird.
That's like trying going places.
You know, when you have to like iterate so fast, there's like no bad ideas.
No,
so
I agree.
You just like throw everything out there.
And then look at this. This is
like
close.
where we wound
More or
up
less
for the promo
the first
video.
logo.
I'm gonna soak it up. So I know from going through all these that the O changes. What else changes to the final from this? Any of those?
Literally every single letter.
letter.
There are some things that reappear. So like kind of some things that you see reappear are these like sort of DNA looking shapes.
Yeah.
And like these sort of the K kind of like retains some of those weird shapes too.
Some of the C.
Some of the C. There's a C. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Hi.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest challenges with this one was like trying to get the C to work.
I'm gonna get my first face tattoo, and it's one of these letters. I'm gonna get one of these on my face. I'm gonna decide after this stream. All right, Chris, we'll go and
We can vote.
Oh, so this is a cool. Good, wow. So a lot changed. You're right. The I actually retained a lot. C a little. The S is very different.
Yeah, what we did was like for the top version, once we got back to like redo all of this, Caitlin and I both worked on variations of like kind of redrawing everything, and I literally laid everything over Helvetica to look at getting equal kinds of width for everything, because that was one of the things that was really challenging about working with every letter being different is like looking at like some would be more line heavy, some would be more mass heavy, and so like you trying to feel like there was a balance throughout the whole thing. So
because that balance stops you from reading right.
Right.
There's an interesting effect that the
Right, and it also
breaks
creates
up
like
your
a very
processing.
weird rhythm in how you're reading it. Like it doesn't read as like a smooth word. It's like the K is like crazy, and then things fall back, and
And you objectify. If something gets too objectified, you lose the letter. You read
It just
collide,
looks-
egg.
Yeah,
skiff.
it just looks like an art piece. Like
Right,
it doesn't
yeah.
look like words.
And it's already such a weird word that people are prone to
Right.
missaying.
Yeah.
So
I'm
it's
still
like-
misspelling it.
So on this one, we did kind of take out the starburst effect on it.
And that comes back though.
It comes back a little bit in the
Okay.
stacked version, but it definitely like this is much more. it's so funny because I call this one like the tamed down version, even though it's so not tame.
Right.
But there's even another stage because this isn't even the finish.
And then this is where the O, I see, now the O is back.
Right,
our egg.
because for me, like the most important thing was we need to have a reference to the egg, really, that is at the heart of the ride.
Yeah. And so, literally the heart of MLGAM.
Yes, yeah, and so that's where this came from. Is like after seeing this, it was like, oh yeah, like I can totally make this into the heart as well, you know, like
that's so dope.
Because it's so like beautiful.
Anything.
Yeah, because it's so beautiful and graphic, and it just looks so good in that L wire.
That's so dope. Cool. It's everything. Circles keep spinning.
So then it gets even more simplified.
Now this is from Elitch Gardens, and this is so what we were talking about earlier.
This is my favorite way to get feedback.
You get to work with third-party people. And then there is the anxiety of when you don't have their feedback but know it's coming, and what is it gonna change the thing I like? Are they gonna find the one thing I hate or something? You know, because I go through that a lot. Something you just don't know if it's right yet, and generally they find that.
Yeah, I mean,
I hate this thing.
Generally, this came down to like just the need to continue to simplify things, and you know, that's what a lot of this feedback was. We sent it to Elitch, and they came back with some notes, and so, you know, we had a meeting, and we all just kind of like looked at that together and talked about their feedback and some of the things that we'd started looking at as well, kind of under a more critical lens about how to make this really, you know, function legible on a bunch of different scales. Because one of the reasons that we actually did this like stacked version as well is that we had this realization after knocking out the first version that it was really wide. And so a lot of the signage in the park is really tall, and a lot of print applications are really tall. And so like the logo would be this big on this huge thing. So we were like trying to figure out how do you stack it so you can make it a bit bigger in a vertical space.
So
how do you make it bigger, and how do we also make it scale down so you have a piece of merchandise and it's like
embroidered
1 inch, embroidered, whatever, like.
I can't even. It's so cool. It's so cool how worrying about the T-shirt affects the A in the logo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have the Coupe de Grace here. We're getting to the last.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
So this is I don't even know what is going on.
This is a crazy art book of mine that shows. I kind of like
that shows how Luke works.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's kind of like some of this stuff is the original, and then the middle is kind of like where it's going, and then all these other random floating letters are like ideas that are in process. So
I like the S worm. He looks like the Al Gore worm that wears a hat and a turtleneck.
Nice.
Oh
You know
yeah.
what I'm talking about? Is it Al Gore? I just can't.
And he's got weird eyes.
Yeah. He's really cute. I love it.
But yeah, we kind of like all three really kicked these ideas back and forth over and over and over. Just like, what if you try this? What if you try this? Like strip out that shape. You know, there was an image I know I sent you guys. You're not able to use it. It was a note from Emily that was like more goop here. You know, and so.
Yeah, I think, and it's important to note that it was like from like while this was going on, we already had a logo like out there, and so like we were sort of like this pressure to like release a new logo so that we could proceed with like real branding
and solve it. So our next slide is actually the end of the road.
Yep.
And there it is.
That's where we
Ta-da!
landed.
Stacked and unstacked. And it's unstacked on the sign, right?
And it also has a specific version for embroidery because this still wasn't quite simple enough.
Wow.
So
that is so cool. But look at all that simplicity though.
Yeah.
But it's
literally it's oozing simplicity now in comparison to some of the earlier ones. So cool. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing with us.
Yeah,
I love
so much.
seeing retroactively into your world. And now we're going to go fully into the zones and bring on another concept artist. Bye, Caitlin. Bye, Luke. Bye. Come on in, Mary. So, Mary, would you like to join us on the floor? So, Emily, now we're going into zone 1, and this is singularity as it became an egg.
Right. Yeah.
So, did you think of egg? Who thought of egg?
You know, it all kind of mixes together in my mind. I know it was something I was thinking a lot about, was that wanting to show just like, you know, and it's a very like go-to like sort of symbol for like creative potential, you know? Like, and it's actually, the cosmic egg is kind of all over the place. And I saw an episode of Ancient Aliens actually the other week that focused on the cosmic eggs. So
wow, that is
really
so great.
out there.
I think there's still modern aliens. Oh, look, it's Mary. Hi, Mary. How are you?
I am good.
Mary is one of our concept artists, And we are now going into Zone 1. Earlier, we saw a bunch of your Primordia sketches.
Oh, yes.
Which are Zone 3, and we will get there. You're pretty much the star of the Zone 1s through 3 show here, as far as concept art goes. So when, there we are. So Mary, we spoke earlier to Brant. This process starts early in concepting and then gets parsed out and given to the individuals that, I think Brant is like a concept art whisperer. So he's like, I hear Mary in these drawings in the future. And then you come on, and how does that feel? Where do you start?
Well, for this was really interesting because I've never worked on a project like this before. So basically what I was doing was I was taking that really cool piece of concept art that we saw Brant do, the one that was sort of all of the zones transitioning into each other, and sort of expanding on that based on feedback from art directors.
Right. Zooming in.
Yeah, lots.
And you let go, right? Your directions the whole time were like, just draw what you might see in there, and then we'll decide what that makes us feel, and then that sort of leads to what they make.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely kind of the fun part of concept art, is that it can turn into anything.
That is so cool. Before the iteration. So you drew this. This is Emily's like, there's Vulcan egg. And then you, boom. This is what came out?
Yep, drawing of an egg. I wish there was more to say about the egg.
I know the egg is the beginning.
What can you say about the egg? No, but I mean,
it's the chicken.
This is like really valuable to us too, because for this, what happens right after the egg, the dot jumps out of the egg and then it begins to multiply, lines connect, and it starts to form into a landscape, basically.
The geodesicness evolves,
and so this in the actual ride was executed by 2 artists, Chris and Lale.
Awesome.
So to be able to show them like what we were thinking and have them be able to have a visual of like the type of projection effects we want to achieve and the type of animation, like that's like huge.
That's really cool. And then, so this is really interesting. The concept art that I've worked on, Secret Stuff, that I've worked with you on, is very opposite what I'm seeing you flex in this. So you are actually the mama bear for this geodesic, the first impression of this geodesicness.
Oh, that's a cool way to think about that. I like that.
So, yeah, because that's, I mean, when I went through all these, you sort of see that it starts. If you go to our next one, Chris. So now we have some evidence of eggery. And these are all made by Quinn. And this is the actual egg at Cat. And there it is. The egg's open. He had to make, I think he made 4, but there's 2 in the exhibit. Starts in an egg and goes into an egg.
Right, and the egg, the top shell part actually lifts up and opens up as you are on the ride.
With animatronics, or is there a little man that's back
with
there?
actuation.
Okay. Actuate it.
There's a little tiny centipede cranking it up.
I love it. Chris, you can take us through the next one as well. And then this is, since the egg is the beginning of the experience, we only have, there's just this egg with one of the canisters that Bruce Willis shoots in all the movies to save himself, the CO2 or whatever. And then there it is, Mary. That's the egg that you drew.
It's beautiful.
It is. And that's Quinn doing his thing. I think that's all made out of fiberglass and then cast and then painted to be flexible and breakable. Oh, it's so beautiful. That's great. And then the great thing about Zone 1 is it's only this egg. And then the projection mapping goes across all of that black, correct?
Yeah, you can see that kind of scrim behind the egg, so it moves that way.
That is so cool. And you go forward in time. And then we go into Zone 2. So what you're looking at right now is the mountain aesthetic. And so that comes out of, what were their names again? The people that did the projection mapping for?
Oh, Chris and Lale.
Chris and Lale. And so, the geodesic mapping explodes into this mountain feel, which is another really cool overlapping of themes where you have this mountain texture. This is from the tutorial video that you see inside Q. And then it spawns out of the egg and then becomes all the mountains that you cruise through. And Brant, you can come on in. Yeah, come on. And Emily, if you want to take a break, you can relax for a bit, and we're going to do some Zone 2 with my 2 concept art buddies.
Cool.
You can pop back in, have some pizza.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sitting with us while we explore. So, all right, so we go into mountains. Yes, you can't see her. She's snaking it, doing the work. Dang. Oh, watch out. Flying mics. Yeah, so when you guys were looking at this with mountains and concept, had you done any geodesic art before?
I had not, no.
Right. It's one of my favorite things.
It kind of is one of mine, too.
You're into
it was so much fun.
Yeah. And so did you start with how do you do the dimension? Like, because I'm really bad at it and I do it all by eye. Were you mathematical at all, or were you going for feel and perception of dimension when you create that?
Absolutely, just freestyle feel. I started sketching, and then I went through a phase when I was messing around a little bit 3D modeling it, and that actually changed my process a lot.
What were you using to 3D model?
I was just using SketchUp. I just wanted to get a really basic sense of what everything would feel like in the actual space.
Yeah, we have some of that work which you share with us, which we're going to go through too, which is really informative. And and that was actually, because I hadn't seen the Dark Ride still. But I had to go through all of this and understand what it's coming to a precipice as. And one of the only things that actually helped me were the 3D renders that we get to, that you did in SketchUp. And I was like, oh, there's corners you turn. I had no idea what this thing was.
It's only flat walls.
I just was thinking haunted house. I just dark. Sure. I just thought it was spooky. I had no idea. I really didn't know.
But even this is abstracted. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. And so this, what are we looking at here? This is kind of this is not an elevation. This is your first perceptions of...
So this is after the beams of light have come out of the egg, and they're starting to form sort of just shapes, and those shapes are starting to become three-dimensional, and that is starting to form sort of, I guess, a landscape on the bottom.
That's right. That's so cool. Chris, if you go through the next one too, lower thirds on top of us. Doesn't hurt, don't worry at home. So, and then, now they are forming mountains, and this is cool because this is you'll see in some photos we have of the actual installation, there's this setting sun in the mountain zone, right? And did you...
rising.
Rising.
Even better.
Of setting, that's so much better. And so these forms too, you were like having fun and seeing sort of land shapes as well?
Yeah, I actually ended up doing a ton of different versions of this drawing, just sort of moving things around just a little tiny bit, seeing what everyone liked, what worked the best for what we were trying to convey with the space.
Right.
And yeah, I was surprised seeing photographs of Zone 2, how close to my drawings it ended up being. It was so
pretty
cool.
Awesome. Chris, you can take us through. We have, so then this is the actual rise, which is really cool. And you could see the variations in all perspectives. And then if we go through, here it is. And so is this SketchUp?
Yes, this is SketchUp.
Okay, that's so cool. And basically what you'll see is after Zone 2 is mountains, and then we go into Primordia, which is Zone 3. So you're actually seeing both here. And so the geodesicness comes out of the egg and holds across Zone 2. And then a bit of that actually holds across the formation of Primordia.
The thought we were having was that the low poly forms were starting to become a little bit higher poly and were starting to be pixelated instead of faceted. So a little bit of that comes through in the backdrops.
And then they start combining and becoming creatures. So I think the next one is actually the walkthrough that you created.
Oh, cool.
Or I don't know, ride through. I'm not really sure what the technical term is.
Fly through.
Fly through.
Oh.
Fly through. Roll through. And it was interesting, I was looking at one of Brittany's diagrams, and there's all these ticks, and basically it's like when you look at this, everything's a minute.
Yeah.
It's so interesting how it all gets broken up and segmented, and then understood as the user experience. Do you have the next video, Chris? Oh, yeah.
You know, one thing to look when you look at these dark rides is to think about walking through a pop-up book. Because that's exactly what it is, 100%. So you have not only three-dimensional things, but you have two-dimensional things that are acting like three-dimensional things. It's everything because you have to maximize such small space to get full impact story.
Yeah, and then here is, and there it is. This is the actual mountains constructed, sheet metal, bent to the low poly aesthetic, and then outlined with, I believe that is very thin gaff tape.
Yep.
So it's
cool.
It's so minimalist and totally rewarding. You can keep scrolling through, Chris. Yes.
I love that.
And so there we go. And you'll notice that's hand pixelated muraling back there.
Yeah, I know.
So that's geodesic going to the pixelated and solid form as it transitions into Primordia. And then that's a really beautiful shot. And so that is projection mapping mixed with sculptural elements on top of geodesic mountainry. And then gorgeous muraling behind, that's smoke. Mixed with projection map smoke. It's so tasty.
Next level.
Yep, and there it is. There's your sunrise. So cool to see. And I guess those triangles, those are all your conglomeratron shoot zones. and they activate various rising elements of the terrain. You can take us through to the next one. And this I love. So this is actually the seam between the mountain zone and the primordia zone. So you see,
looks like a painting.
It really does,
doesn't it?
This is Kate Russell's beautiful photography, and this is fully lit too. This is what it feels like when you're actually in there, and it is just stunning. It's so alive. Pretty cool. Pretty cool to see it all happens. And so now we're going into primordia, and so this is U2 as well. And primordia was described as, we were talking about it earlier with Emily, where it's basically all of these more simplified versions of creatures are combining to become more complex creatures and foliage and all that stuff.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's primordial. Did you guys have any like references besides what was spoke of for this that you were thinking about?
I just was my love for like old natural history museums, you know, and dioramas. So yeah.
Because I will say, like plant life, it's been a downward spiral in the last 20,000 years or whatever.
Yeah,
like
kinda.
it used to be
Not
crazy.
as interesting, right?
They don't eat people anymore.
Not as sharp.
They're not as sharp. Yeah. They don't unfurl like they used to. They don't tower over you.
Yeah.
There's a really cool in Vancouver. There's a building, that skyscraper with a tree on the top. And I was always wondering about it, and then I met a guy one night, and he knew the story of the tree, and it's actually there to symbolize the tops of the trees that used to populate the coast of Vancouver. So they used to actually be a skyscraper high, pretty much.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So the little tree is just there on top of the whole building to symbolize how much much prowess plants used to have. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. So, and then Brant too, as you spoke of earlier, and Mary, I assume you knew this too, you went into Primordia and then you knew that you were going to influence the next layer of physical artists who were going to fabricate all this stuff. So you had like you were shooting the gun of concept art with reckless abandon.
Sort of at the first. It's always at the first stages because we've come to the conclusion that if you start like putting down too many walls up in front, then you're going to never hit that solution that you need to hit. So and this again was another first pass where it was just about a feel more than it was to be 100% accurate.
Yeah.
And to give you an idea of just going down to this hallway and seeing things actually like spanning across overhead, across, you know what I mean? And so to actually create a completely immersive experience, so it's just not stuff on two sides.
It's so true, yeah. And it's basically, because this drawing, what it does give you is the feel of the surround.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you know, I don't think the pineapples, we had a lot of, I love how much pineapple you had in your brand. It's one of my favorite things, a lot of pineapple.
It's not all me. That's creative direction.
Oh,
right there,
okay, good. Really?
That's
Emily wanted
totally,
the pineapple.
yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it. So, Chris, you go through to the next. There's just colored. Oh, no, it's actually all different illustrations, but still going into Primordia. This one is earlier in the process, right?
Super early.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Spencer actually was able to jump on this to provide some color direction. It's funny because when you look at the black and white drawings, they could slightly veer towards a little more realism, but then once you get the color palette in there, then it's like you instantly recognize Meow Wolf.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. And then you'll notice there's a different cue.
Yeah.
Like the cue changed.
Yeah, that's true.
That was older cue. Yeah, okay, and then, so this is interesting. This is also going into Primordia, and you don't necessarily see this in the final ride, but I included it because it's, that's the fog. The fog, the aforementioned fog.
Yeah.
And you can keep rolling, Chris. And then here we go, returning to the motherland. So this actually feels a lot like the finished work.
It's a little more towards that.
Yeah. I mean, it actually resembles what they installed, you know, the layering and the creatures. You can roll forward, Chris. And this one, this is the mural. What is it? Was this background mural is graphic flat? This one has a lot of what the mural actually ended up having.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels to me a little less like the foreground elements changed much more, but the mural is retained. And Mary, I love this stuff. So do you draw in pen a lot or often?
This is actually blue pencil, which I love because it doesn't erase, so it's like pen in that,
that's so
in that
cool.
sense.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so you just have to keep going. You can't just stay around and noodle
And
the
commit.
whole time.
And it's just really refreshing to see this in here. Do you scan these in and use them again, or do you just start from scratch? This is like
I actually did scan these in, and when I was messing around in SketchUp doing the fly-through, I took a lot of these and I just cut them out and made them little flats in SketchUp just to see where everything would look good and where it should go.
And what sticks. It's so beautiful. And then you can see the geodesizing of the lizard at the bottom. So,
Oh, yeah.
and that's something that we'll see and have Emily talk about in a little bit too. You can keep rolling, Chris. We have a few of these from you because I love them.
Oh.
It's so cool. It looks, you're totally sane, but it looks like when you almost went crazy. You know, and it was right
I
there.
love that.
Yeah, it's so cool. All the words. I love it. And then here we are. That's some of those images re-brought out to actually be in the physical plane. It's so cool. And there's our doorway.
Oh, my pineapple oddle.
Pineapples! I love them. And then this is another video. Was this playing before, Chris, or you want to skip it? You can try it, see if it'll play. And this is actually, oh, we're doing it.
There we go.
Oh, we're on the
Woo!
ride.
Yeah, we can be in the dark ride. It's up. This is amazing. I need a conglomeratron. Where's that? Look at that little frog pole tad man. Hey!
Oh.
Gecko lizard has a frog has a pineapple. Did you get this mapping or did you freestyle this?
I freestyled.
Yeah, that's so great. It feels like it's just like it. Oh my God, what's happening now? Back in
I couldn't get it not to do that.
Oh, that's
Does it do that on the
Did
ride?
the ride did that? That would be amazing if it did. Shoots you backwards for 5 seconds. That's so cool. Yeah, I love it. And this was actually, just looking at all, I had to put this together like a crime investigator from everyone's pictures and parts and pieces. And this was the first glimpse that I actually got of what it would feel like. And your movement is spot on. I feel like I'm really there. Chris, you can go to the next one. And then here we are. So this mural is actually 3D printed as well, done by Katie and friends and laid out by the graphic design team. And then everything else is relieved in front of it. You can scroll through to Chris. We have quite a few of these. And that is finished work with a beautiful reflective pond. So gorgeous. It's really great. I could eat all of that. I don't even like candy. This makes me want candy. Beautiful as well.
That's by Katie Karen from Denver.
Oh, Katie Karen in the house. One of our collaborative artists from the Denver town. And this is her chunk of Primordia. And I assume she probably worked on other chunks too. God, that is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And so this is, Kate Russell photography and Lindsay Kennedy photography, and this is finished lighting, finished works. Totally makes me want to, this is Willy Wonka meets Natural History Museum.
Yeah.
So cool, yeah. And then, Emily, come on. We got some fun stuff. We got some fun stuff to talk to Miss Emily about. So this is a really cool part of the process because this one actually involves the concept art. This is, what is this guy? Does he have a name? GeoLizard?
Oh yeah, so this is a series of geolizards that evolve out of tiny, is my mic on?
Here, let me
Can
see.
you hear me now?
No, here, let me see. It might be muted. Hey, fun technical stuff. Oh yeah, it's on the mute. Better? No.
Wait, yeah.
Take that.
Guys got this, I believe.
There you go.
Okay.
How's that?
Does that work?
Ah, now we're rapping.
Cool.
So, okay, so this is a geodesic lizard. You can go to the next one, Chris. I think we have some really cool, I think we have the beginning, we have the chicken and the egg. Okay,
yeah,
this is awesome.
Yeah, like this sequence of creatures is something I really wanted to sort of like put across the concept that the landscape itself is now evolving into life forms. So you'll see like it starts out like all the way down here like with this kind of like little guy who's inspired by these primordial creatures called the placoderms. They are like these sort of armored fish that actually existed.
Whoa.
So the idea is that this little guy crawls out of the low poly sea and then grows legs, and you sort of see it carrying like this poly landscape on its back. It then evolves into like a more sort of a more saurian kind of beast.
Yeah.
And then stands up on 2 legs, grows a 3rd eye, and shoots out a laser with a hand connected to it that then like pushes this tree, and the pushing of the tree like causes this fruit to then fall down into the mouth of another creature.
And then that shit exists now.
Now it exists.
Cat made every shred of this.
Right, so this little drawing that I did, then Kat Mills, one of our sculptors, built these creatures based off of this drawing.
And Wednesday we'll go through more.
She did such a good job.
Oh my God. Yeah, you can go through, Chris. We can see them be developed. Look at.
Yeah, so here's the little baby.
Hey, buddy.
Here's stage 1.
And then
and then we got stage 2.
He's got feet. He's gangly. He's like a puppy. He's got puppy body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stage 3, got some teeth.
Oh wow. And then he's
then
bipedal.
finally stage 4.
Oh, that's great. So what happened with the hand? The hand is there.
Yeah, so the hand does shoot out of the forehead. It's an actuated moment.
Oh my
and
God.
The hand pushes the tree, fruit drops. I know you saw a lot of pineapples earlier in the art. We were really into the pineapples early on.
Yeah.
But ultimately we decided to go with a durian for the fruit.
Oh yeah, durian. Yeah.
So
Which
it's
is
like a neon durian.
if you haven't smelled a durian, don't. Just stop right there. It is the most violent looking fruit too. It really.
Yeah.
It looks like it had enough of birds and it evolved.
Please don't eat me.
Yeah, it's like get out of here. Beware of dog. Oh, and then.
So this is the creature that Quinn Tincher designed and sculpted, and this is the creature who then like its neck goes like, and then it comes and eats the fruit.
Wow, and he has donut
And it's
flagellum.
like
Donut
a
flagellum,
yeah, it's like a reference then back to the snake Ouroboros donut.
Wow, it is so cool. And then there we are. And then there they are coming from the ground up. And there you see the little, God, I always use the wrong hand. Hey, buddy! And there he is waiting for his fruit. Does the fruit come down when?
Yeah, fruit drops down, neck goes up. Yeah, the neck is kind of like a experience tube.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So cool. Shout out. Yeah, and then here's our mural. Caitlin worked on finalizing this, and this is is this Katie Kennedy largely?
Yeah, so it's Katie Kennedy, Benji Geary, and I think Scott Geary also did some work on this. And then, yeah, this had to be blown up to span that entire zone. So I don't know how many feet the final one, like 20 feet, something like that.
20 feet of vectorizing joy. It is so beautiful, though. And I'll be honest, it does not look printed. When you look at those photos, there's nothing about it that looks different from like the hand-painted pixel sunset that's in the mountain zone. Like they literally, to my eye in photographs, is just as gorgeous.
We should sell that as wallpaper for people's homes.
Or back tattoo.
Yeah,
I got
totally.
a lot of back I got to cover. Get into it with this stuff. Just go wrap around. You can do my whole, I'd be done. I'd just be covered in this mural. So that's amazing. Yeah, and well, thank you guys so much for sitting with me. It's great to have you, Mary.
Yeah,
See all the
great
work
to
you
be
did. Yeah. Branch, we're going to hang out. Me and you are going into chaos and madness. And
Right
you
on.
can hang out if you want. These should go pretty quick. So Zone 4 is chaos into madness. And so we have now made creatures, life forms. It's a primordial ooze garden. Life is budding. Yeah. And then it starts to fabricate its own reality.
Yeah.
And the thing that I noticed in Chaos to Madness is this is really where the Meow Wolf comes out. This is the most meow, whatever that means. If you've been to it, you know. But it's the most Meow Wolfian, it's the most collectivized. It looks like a beautifully cluttered imagination. It's sort of like our skeleton buddy over here. So it's maximalist, I guess, is the
Totally
word.
maximalist, yeah.
So, and then Brant, here we go, a little more pineapple. He's got like a hot dog gun.
Yeah, he has a hot dog gun. So basically the idea was that parts and pieces, earthly sort of like props, possessions, things that we're sort of used to in our everyday sort of like life, start to form even more complex, almost bipedal type humanoids.
Oh, the life of objects.
Yes,
This is
absolutely,
cool. All right,
absolutely.
awesome. Okay.
And then also at this point, we started to consider the idea of possibly getting more of a city feel starting to happen.
Yeah, like you're in a little bit more of a man-made space, but
Yeah.
it's still so abstracted that you
Yeah.
don't really know where you
Totally.
are.
Right. So landscape's not formulated. That's what I liked about this. Is it's the landscape is not really happening in this. It's abstract backgrounds. It's color exploding. It's texture, and then this is what is going. That thing's awesome on the left.
So it was continuing more along the lines of continuing more along the lines of this sort of city sort of scape forming, and then also it was the first time we started to figure out how to layer. Like if this is so maximalist that we wanted to understand what we were even drawing. So in order to do that, we started to figure out, this is where we started to first talk about things like vinyl applique wallpaper and things like that. So that's where this drawing took it, this is where this drawing sort of took that direction.
But after this, it was sort of, I think this was primarily, it was just one piece done for this section just to kind of inspire the sort of general direction. And
right, and like to show Elitch is what we were planning, because it's like the kind of thing where we know we're going to make a lot of stuff and it's going to be really crazy, but like we don't know what it's going to be. Like we find that out when we make it.
And you can't say trust us.
This is our,
we're good at crazy.
We can try.
Cram into a room. And then this is, this is actually Nick Toll and
Michael Ortiz
from Denver, right?
Look at that depth in there, man.
It's so
gorgeous. So beautiful.
It is really beautiful, and that is just something else. Chris, you can roll, and then there you go. So this is unfinished work. This is the happy egg. This is Brodsky's stretching horse, and then the thing, our flower creature, who we know from the cover of the origin story. Katie Kennedy illustration.
They all move and make sounds.
They all move, right? Man. And then this is Gold as Goldfish, no pun intended, which I love.
Holding a tray of sushi.
Go figure. Gotta eat them all. And then here you go. So this is a bit of the maximalist. Don't know that this isn't entirely finished, but it's pretty close. You have the wild wizard, Wiccan, puppeteer, antelope person, and that amazing egg. I know Rose made the egg. I love the egg. The egg is so good.
Beautiful.
Another return to
and
egg.
Sandra worked on that.
As well, okay. And then this is just an abstract for the end. We're going to go on Wednesday really heavily into the chair flip. It's a very abstract, interesting deformalizing of an object you're familiar with, right?
Yeah, and we worked with Kenzie Sitterud to create this from Denver. Yeah.
So cool.
So this is like kind of a moment that is, you've gone through this overload, creatures on all sides, and then you're just confronted with this chair. And
it's
the
satisfying.
Yeah.
So, and we're going to talk about Confront the Chair as a good band name or something. So, and we're going to get into that heavily on Wednesday because it is a moment and you can tell, but you really need to see it. And to me, it's one of the most, I don't understand how somebody thought of that fucking chair and what it's doing. It's really like from a brain, to get fabricated and do what it's doing. So it's something to look forward to on Wednesday. So, and then our next area, as you get out of that, you go into geodecadent. And I know you said that the concept art we'll see in a sec is derived off of a pre-existing version of geodecadent, which was where in the universe?
So we did this twice back in the early days of Meow Wolf. It was just a geodesic dome with every kind of object you can imagine.
That's in the origin story.
And it's in origin
That's
story.
how Quinn met Jenny.
Yep.
Yeah,
Quinn met
I
Jenny.
love it. That's how love happens.
If
you haven't seen it, check it out. So now I know exactly what geodecadent is. So it's basically, and then here we go. And again, can you explain me the difference between this maximalism and the previous maximalism? Like in the head, what's going on there?
Right, so in the previous scene, you will see a landscape that is populated with lots of creatures, lots of objects doing their thing. But now the landscape itself is objects. Everything is maximum, conglommed together into this entire thing that surrounds you. It's kind of like, I don't know if you played that video game Katamari Damacy.
Yes, very
that
much
was
so.
Our initial inspiration for this. But this is the point where everything freaks out and it is too big to handle.
It's so cool. And we got Pineapple Man. This is he's back and he's ready for action. Chris, you could take us through. And then this is another really cool, Brant, this is
so this is, we had actually already started, we had the model complete. And at this particular point, I was working with other 3D modelers and developers to actually figure out what angle I could draw this at to show them how these could be rings of maximalist sort of objects that you would go through. Cool. So this is sort of a tunnel sort of concept.
Right.
Yeah, and these would be sort of rings of just maximalist material.
That's so cool.
That you travel in.
Gateways.
Yeah, totally.
I want to go anything with a skull, I want to walk in. And here we are. Yeah. And so this is this is in process, so this is not the most layered it is. This is the first one.
Yeah, it's pretty early.
Yeah, this is very early. Yeah, I like the use of tinsel. Don't let the cats around this exhibit part. They'll get sick and choke up. Chris, you can roll us through to the next, and you'll see there. So more being glued to the walls, more emerging.
That's great.
The river Thames, Iams, the cat food. Yeah, and then this is also unfinished, but really cool, and you see it coming to Maximalist life, and then there's a kitty.
Yeah, if you look hard enough, you can find Snaggy in there in the finished ride.
Oh, cool. Okay. So remember, when you ride the ride, find the Snaggy. That's the plush severed head over here. Hi, buddy. And I love this one. So you can't necessarily see here. So I know that Benji did the camouflage Pride Night, which
yeah,
I
the
love.
Lisa Frank night.
Yeah, and then there's two lovebirds nesting in his helmet head.
And then the knight is holding a frying pan, flipping an egg, while the birds in his helmet just watch.
That's dark.
It's kind of dark.
Oh, what do you do when you shoot his chest? Can you shoot him? Is that reactive?
Yes,
And
yes.
does it move the pan?
Yeah.
So cool. And that knight is another recurring layer from Ghost Blasters. Because apparently there were knights in the Ghost Blasting. And then this is a Kate Russell in all its glory, finished color. You see all that extra stuff between the first and this last shot, populating the walls, really cool. And then Luke's cart of joy, so beautiful. Oh, and there's the conglomeratrons all loaded into the life-giving gun. So great. Yeah, thank you guys.
Absolutely.
So, Britt, we're going to swap you out for the beautiful
Cool.
Britt. Thank you so much, Britt.
Thanks, dude.
For everything you did. Yeah,
of course.
Dun, dun, dun. Hi, Britt. Welcome back.
Thanks.
So we have you on because this is interesting as we go into this next zone. This is called the light tunnel. And thematically, this is where you have all that maximalism of objects, correct me where I'm wrong, is just hitting light speed and becoming a blur of colors and light and sensation.
Right.
Somehow,
yeah,
more or less.
it is just sucking you into hyperspace.
Right. And this was, we spoke about this briefly, this was all idea, right? You were like, we want this vortex light hyperspace feel. Right.
Yeah, that was, and then we always loved doing projects with LEDs, and just the idea that we could use those LEDs to create this sense of motion and traveling through space was really exciting.
And then, I assume that is where you come in. Now, I know you've done dark rides before, but have you done light tunnels?
So the light tunnels actually occur in a lot of dark rides, which was really cool. So it was actually, that concept exists, so it was easy for us to pull from and figure out kind of how to do that. But the challenge with this one is the way that it works best is when it's in a straight shot, because then you can really get the feeling that you're going really quickly.
I see.
But the challenge we had here is where this scene fell is it actually curves. So we really had to figure out, it became a really tough design challenge to figure out how to get that feeling, how to keep you kind of immersed in that tunnel and make you feel like you're moving really fast even though the ride is like generally pretty slow.
Right.
And we also had the walls that existed. So, and the track, so where we were able to put anchors for this light tunnel, because what we did was basically make a bunch of hoops and connected LEDs to those hoops. So trying to figure out mathematically where to place those hoops that isn't going to impede on the ride, isn't going to impede on the structure, and we also had to scan because this is an existing building, so we didn't know what was under the slab. We had to X-ray it and figure
see if
out.
you could actually ground them.
Exactly, make sure we weren't going to hit anything.
X-rayed the ground?
X-rayed the ground.
Wow.
I didn't personally, but we had someone come in.
The engineer showed up? Okay,
exactly.
all right, great. So, wow, that is so crazy. So I have to ask, as an idiot, how do you even know you did it right? Like, you're never in it. You still haven't ridden the ride.
It's true.
Like, so just for when you're breaking the warp speed feel, how do you guesstimate that that's going to work for?
So we had help from our lighting designers who were able to put this into a previs program, and we were able to actually see what it would look like and make sure that we were getting the feeling that we wanted from it.
Wow, that is so cool. Chris, if you take us through, this is actually really quick. Sorry. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, so this is. Yeah. So, based
a lot of this work was done by Rowan Doyle, who's no longer works at Meow Wolf, but she was really helped a lot on the LED tunnel, and so I just wanted to give her a quick little shout out
too. Rowan. So this looks like, I don't even know I don't know how you do your job. I don't know. It doesn't, I don't get it. It's like, that is so cool. And then Chris, if you go to the next one, so this, I just picked this because it had pretty colors. I realize.
Oh yeah,
it's
here I'm kind of in the way. That's
right.
the wrong way. I'm going to sit really close to you.
And then naming conventions are important for tech teams because when you have, it's basically an erector set. If you've been a child, nothing is clearly labeled, so you have to label it yourself, or it's instant confusion.
Tech teams and for install on site. So especially because all of these hoops were very similar, we needed to have a naming convention that we were able to laser cut pieces, put those pieces on those hoops. And then when they got on site, they'd be able to say like, oh, P2, which is over there. Right. We know where that goes because we have this chart which tells us where that lays out.
Like IKEA. IKEA has taught me this lesson.
Exactly.
I know
just
this
like
well.
IKEA.
Right. That is so cool. So then, and also this was built there's how it's going to feel when you're in it. So, and then this was built here at Caterpillar in Santa Fe, and then completely reconstructed. And did we do that to make sure it works? Why did we do that?
Because they had to do a lot of the wiring. So it took a lot of tech fab. So because we had these hoops and the LEDs, they had to be connected and soldered together and make sure all the wiring works and be able to program it, because we weren't going to have that much time on site.
To do it on site.
Exactly.
Right.
So they did a lot of that here, which was cool because we were able to like walk through it and pretend we were in it.
And that helps you be like, oh, I did that right. So if you go to the next one, you'll start seeing the bones of this beautiful thing as it takes shape. So that's actually the tunnel without the lights. So that's no LEDs, that's hoops.
Yep.
Sort of looks like a wedding, more goth wedding. Hoopah. And then here we are. And that's Chris Hilson mutilating chairs, I believe. You can't tell.
He's in the wrong scene. We'll have to move him out of there.
And then you'll see actually upstairs, shout out to the sound team. We'll be talking to them on Wednesday. Those are wrapped speakers so they don't get painted up there. The little green looks like to-go food in the ceiling. It's not. And then so...
That's not the snacks they were
That's
snacking
not the
on while they
snack.
built
Keep
it.
mine up high so the bears don't get it inside the dark ride. And Chris,
there's raccoons that live right outside here too.
In
So
the
they
dark-
get
Yeah,
it.
raccoons, and there's falcons. There's all kinds of wildlife.
Do they play? Because I hear that
They play.
they like Watership Down. No, that's rabbits. What's the one where the badger hangs out with the? Anyway, yeah, it's for another time. This is really cool. And so that is your. Does it feel cool to see something like this that you constructed?
Yeah, it feels really cool.
It did, and it's such an awesome mesh of human beings.
And this, because a lot of the dark ride was like, we had an idea, we kind of drew what we thought, and then artists got to take it the rest of the way and really put their own spin on it. It doesn't necessarily look exactly like the drawings, but this looks identical. It had to, because it had space considerations and Fab had to do it. So it's kind of cool that it looks exactly like what we drew, which is fun.
Really beautiful. If this is what, if I want to get swallowed by a light snake, if this is what it feels like inside, it's really beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much, Britt.
Yeah.
It's great to have you on once again. Sahai, come here.
You can't.
Oh! Anyway, so that was the light tunnel, and then so now then that's kind of your final. That is taking you to the velocity of returning to the egg.
Right.
Things breaking apart.
Yeah, compressing, going back to their elemental forms.
Right. Speed and light.
Yeah.
Crushing back to the nothing we all came from, and then it gets into this final. Hi, Sahai. Come on in. Have a seat. How are you?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm really good. So we actually saw the very first concept art we were looking at for the light tunnel was done by you, and that is when someone says, "Draw me how a light tunnel feels." How does that feel?
Well, basically, I needed to make very straight lines.
Straight, because that's how. Yeah.
Yeah. So I used a ruler.
Oh.
Yeah, and there were a lot of options to choose from, but I thought that was probably the best way to go about it.
Right. You could have used the side of a book or.
Or just my freehand skills.
Yeah,
but
straight.
I think it was really important that they were as straight as they could be.
Definitely warping. Well, we've all warped before, and the stars they become straight lines. It's the first thing that they do.
We might be warping right now.
Oh, I wish.
Yeah.
Look.
See?
So, Sahai, tell me about this. This is so. The interesting thing about this one is those images you drew are pretty much what is actually morphing in the. So, bike and chair. Were those told, or was that kind of what came?
I think some of them were thrown out there by creative direction, and then some of them I just kind of pulled from what I saw in the concept art that had come before.
Right.
Yeah, and this is just everything returning to its most abstracted, primordial form.
DNA. I see our boy. The best ladder in the world, the only spiral staircase, and then we have the return of the geodesic star map behind all that.
Yeah, so really, I mean, it's the idea of it's like turning a red bicycle into a sphere, turning a blue ladder into a pyramid, and then turning a yellow chair into a yellow cube. So you're bringing everything back to their like most basic forms, and then so they may return to the egg, which the egg inside of it has a zoetrope that is spinning, and you see that happening. So that you approach the egg and like it opens up, and then you have this zoetrope that spins, and you see like a strobing of all the shapes kind of being condensed back down to that singularity.
Oh, that is so cool, because I haven't actually seen this. So if you go forward, Chris, you'll see. Yeah, so
there you go.
That is the bones of our zoetrope. Doesn't look like it's doing what Emily said right now, but it does. And then this is really cool. I love this. So in comparison to the stark nature of the initial egg, the Genesis egg, where it's just in a black hallway, this one has a lot of, is that Hilson did most of this re-welding and bike mutilating?
Yeah, he did an amazing job. Like, actually, this is one of my favorite parts of the whole ride. It's so cool. Like, I'm sure you'll get more into it on Wednesday, actually, what it took to make these objects. But when you see them, it's like, you see that chair getting crushed down into that cube. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
And is this like strobe lit so that, or is it?
Yeah, it's strobe lit. So like the hope is that, you know, you get this kind of sequential progression of like normal, distorted, more distorted, like totally crushed up, and then
the final
shapes.
one you'll see goes all the way to just the egg with the shapes, and then there it is. And then I assume those shapes are what decorates the zoetrope, right?
Yeah, so then you'll see those shapes inside getting all sucked in.
Cool. How does it feel to see your egg all grown up? All the stuff getting crazy going into it.
You know, it's really cool just because the concept itself is so simple that it's something that really needs to be experienced, you know. And so it's cool to just see that the whole process has come full circle.
Yep.
And
no irony included.
Everybody played their part.
Yep.
And they gave their all. And here we are at Singularity.
Right. Returning again. It really is the moral of the story. It's pretty amazing. And then after that, you exit, and you are in the Q.return.
Yep.
And then you go like buy a T-shirt or whatever you do when you return to something. Like I went to blah, 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 and all I got was this T-shirt.
Yeah.
I went to Singularity, and all I got was this amazing T-shirt.
That would make a good T-shirt.
Yeah, that would be really good.
Hopefully something's changed.
That's right. Something has to change after I go to Singularity. At least my hairstyle or something. So, and then Sahai, this is one of your babies, right? What were you thinking of here? Is this Wodorowski
Basically,
inspired?
this was, I mean, a lot of things are.
Are they? Yeah.
Basically, it was just how do you bring people out of this journey. And so I was looking more at just having these shapes go from complexity to more streamlined experience.
Yeah.
And yeah, just this feeling of returning. Everything's starting to become more recognizable. It's, you know.
And he's sweeping up like Carol Burnett.
Yeah, you know, we were really psyched about having a janitor, just like an animatronic janitor, be the final thing that you encounter on this ride.
Too sick?
It was too sick this time, but you know.
It is really good. I love this image.
It's hard to get a good janitor.
It is, especially an animatronic janitor.
Definitely.
It's probably a little easier. They're only going to sweep that one patch. And that's it, guys. Let's bring everybody back on, including Dr. Fuzzy. Oh! Hey, guys are here! Well, this has been Monday's Wolf Watching / Meet Kaleidoscape, and this is approximately 1/3 of the amount of human beings that it actually takes to make an entire dark ride in Denver. Yeah, I want to thank you guys for everything you did and being a part of this and sharing your details in some.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
That was it.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
watching.
world. We'll be back on Wednesday with a lot more tech fab and all the amazing human beings who went into Kaleidoscape. Ciao!
Bye.
Meow Wolf Live is a chance to interact with the artists and individuals that create our exhibits.
Meow Wolf Live is a window into our world, where we stream the processes, parts, and people we're made of every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Meet Meow Wolf is an interview-based show that focuses on our many Meow Wolfers and what they do, one at a time.
Wolf Watching is a peek behind the curtain at the work and individuals that make up our exhibitions.
Couch Out is a celebration of indie video games and the joy they generate.
So tune in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as Meow Wolf Live streams itself to a monitor near you.
they were like, he went right, and his just came off, and his were just like around. I'm telling you. And no, I'm trying. No, it's not. No, I'm trying to tell you about. That's all.
Now's the winner of our discontent.
Schnauzer loves Shakespeare!
A horse, my kingdom for a horse.
I have ascended beyond the lifted veil and can now easily recognize how minuscule our existence in Mendocino really was.
We were a contained little box of earthly ignorances, dreaming up superficial storylines of portals and positive mechanics, selling transformation like it was a product on an infomercial.
And yet simultaneously, what happened on that day, in that dining room, inside our family's home, has caused ripples to converge like tidal waves throughout a rapidly destabilizing multiverse. It is crystal clear to me now.
In this eternal moment,
The story has only begun, and we were merely the prelude.
The art world needs to get shaken up a little bit.
It's time for us to just be an agitator.
We don't know what we're doing, and we don't care.
We didn't want rules.
Not only is this crazy, but it's possible.
This is the new art.
It's incredible. Meow Wolf have done something truly unique.